Everyone, and welcome to the Bradenton City Council meeting, Wednesday, February 8th, 8:30 a.m., City Hall Chambers. At this time, we will ask Jenny McIntyre, senior servant at the Altar Church, to come forward, give us our prayer, and then we will do the pledge immediately following that. Thank you. Please stand.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. When my husband died unexpectedly on September 2nd, I had a decision to make. Would I let emotions drive me, or would I lead my life by what I knew? That is what God means when he says, if we seek wisdom, which is applied knowledge, we will be successful. My prayer for you this morning is that as you run the businesses of this city, God will give you wisdom, and you will be able to apply knowledge and compassion. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this morning. You have said that blessed is the nation whose God is you, and we are here to acknowledge you. We need you. We need your wisdom. We need your clarity. We need your presence. Bless, O Lord, this assembly. Let them know that you are with them, and put the best desires in their heart to make decisions that take into consideration all involved and that establish a peaceful, an orderly, and a loving community. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Call the meeting to order. Mrs. Melton.
Good morning. The first item on the agenda is a proclamation for 100 years of baseball in Bradenton, 1923 to 2023. Whereas Major League Baseball came to Bradenton in 1923, hosting spring training games for the St. Louis Cardinals, the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Boston Red Sox during the 1920s. And whereas St. Louis Cardinal Hall of Famer Dizzy Dean played at City Park, later named McKechnie Field, in Bradenton for spring training in the 1930s. And during his time here, he bought a gas station, which became basis for the famed nickname, the Gas House Gang, that won the World Series in 1934. And whereas the Boston Braves held spring training in Bradenton starting in 1948. After a hiatus from baseball earlier that decade, during which the ballpark served as a training field for the U.S. military during World War II. Whereas Lee Park has hosted baseball games in Bradenton for more than 90 seasons. It is the oldest spring training baseball park in Major League Baseball, and in 2012, the ballpark underwent considerable renovations and is now widely considered spring training's finest venue. And whereas the Pirates have called the Bradenton area their southern home since 1969, a period during which the Pirates won 2 World Series championships and featured numerous All-Stars, including Hall of Fame great Roberto Clemente. And whereas the Pittsburgh Pirates will commemorate 100 years of baseball in Bradenton with a special exhibit at Lecom Park this month, along with a host of other activities during this year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jean Brown, as mayor of the city of Bradenton, Florida, do hereby proclaim that this season will celebrate 100 years of baseball in Bradenton. Signed, Jean Brown, Mayor.
Thank you. And who do we have to accept this proclamation? Good morning.
Thank you.
We should have had the 1979 song playing, "We Are Family," as we walked up. That
We should. We
should have thought of that. So.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having us, and we're really excited to be here. And it's really exciting to be celebrating all the history of our ballpark for 100 years. This is the 55th year of the Pirates being here, so we have a lot of fun things planned throughout our season, but also leading up throughout the year. So really excited for that. Been collaborating with Jeannie, who's here, has been helping us, along with Andrea, with Realize Bradenton and the county. So really excited about the collaboration and celebrating this historic milestone. Also, we have our block party coming up on the 18th and opening day on the 25th. So right around the corner, and again, very exciting time of year. Third oldest stadium that Major League games are played in, behind Wrigley Field and Fenway Park. So pretty cool to have that gem right here in our hometown. So again, really excited, and I'd like to introduce Jim Trudinich. Jim's our team historian for the Pirates. Has been coming down here for many years. So turn it over to Jim.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me and having Craig here, and this proclamation's great. I have been a long-time PR director for the Pirates, starting back in 1989, so I've called Bradenton home, my second home since 1992. I actually built a home here 7 years ago, so I'm partly a Bradentonian, if you will. But this has been a great project. The team historian, it just means I've been with the Pirates a long time. But this is going to be a great project, and I'm really happy to have it being undertaken here, so it's great.
Well, I think one of the things that we should be proud of as a city and a community, because Manatee County is very important in the whole history of Major League Baseball, but when you look at one team, 55 years, and you always look at the teams that are always asking for more and more and more from the city and the citizens, the Pirates have always been great partners in that 55 years, and we've worked together as well as not only trying to improve our community, but what I look back on is hearing about those Major League players from all teams that were here, as well as the teams that came in, that would go into the community, and especially the boys club, which was right in the left field out there in the park, and Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, and you can go on for other teams that would sit in the boys club, and you hear that, and a lot of those people they sat with are gone now, but I've heard the stories of being involved with the Boys and Girls Club my whole life, of all those players. So that is an important thing, to come back into a community, and that's what the Pirates have done for 55 years, along with everything, and bringing everybody. So we appreciate that, and I was 12 years old in 1979 and still remember when we won the World Series, and we're ready for another, though. So.
I agree. Let's do it.
So, no pressure.
It all begins in Bradenton.
I know, it all begins in Bradenton. So we appreciate everything, and keep up the good work, and look forward to another 100 years. So,
Sounds good.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Mr. Podobnik.
Oh, he showed up. Come on
Finally
up,
got
Mr.
here.
Podobnik. Snuck in on us. I did. Yes. For the picture. He always shows up for the picture.
Photo op.
Yeah. My peripheral vision wasn't seen. Mr. Podobnik, you want to say a word? You've been here a long time, and kind of with a break in the middle, but.
Well, yeah, you're right. And, when I was driving in this morning to think about 100 years of baseball here in Bradenton, and Gene, as you mentioned it, Mayor, the Pirates have 55 of those years, which it's incredible.
Is there any other? I can't, they move around a lot.
No, so so as spring training facility goes, we're third. The Phillies and the Tigers have a little bit longer tenure than we do. But the cool thing is Lecom Park, McKechnie Field, City Field, as it used to be known, is the third oldest ballpark in the country that hosts Major League Baseball games, behind Wrigley Field and Fenway Park.
Wow.
That's really cool. So we're really proud to be a part of it. We're really proud of our relationship with the city of Bradenton and Manatee County, and specifically the city of Bradenton, because what we have quality facilities, and we're continue growing and building our relationships with each and every one of you. So looking forward to another 100 years or 55 years with the Pirates here in Bradenton, Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Mrs. Melton?
Next, we have a proclamation, Manatee Community Foundation 25th Anniversary Recognition Day, February 8th, 2023. Whereas Manatee Community Foundation, or MCF, is celebrating their 25th anniversary of serving the citizens of Bradenton in Manatee County. And whereas the foundation began in 1998 in West Bradenton to serve charitable people and organizations in our community. And whereas MCF continues to enhance the downtown area with investments and program partnerships supporting Realize Bradenton, Manatee Chamber of Commerce Foundation, Arts Center Manatee, the Bishop Museum of Science and Nature, and many other nonprofits. And whereas they stand firm in their belief that all people should have access to opportunities that will allow our citizens to grow and prosper. And whereas through generous, caring donors, MCF has awarded $50 million in grants and scholarships and is committed to partnering with nonprofit organizations to continue making our city a great place to work, live, and play. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jean Brown, as mayor of the city of Bradenton, Florida, do hereby proclaim February 8th, 2023 as Manatee Community Foundation's 25th Anniversary Recognition Day in Bradenton, and urge all citizens to congratulate the foundation for caring about our community. Signed, Jean Brown, Mayor.
Thank you. Who do we have coming forward? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us here this morning. I want to thank you all for all of your engagement in our community. Every time we go to an event that celebrates a nonprofit that's doing something positive for our community, one of you or more of you are there. So thank you so much for always coming to the table. You know, Manatee Community Foundation was founded in 1998 by a group of community leaders who knew that we needed our own community foundation in Bradenton and Manatee County. And it's because we know the people best who live and work here. And since that time, we have been so honored to award more than $50 million in grants and scholarships. But every one of those dollars that has left the foundation has left the foundation with a vision of somebody who is deeply cared about this community. It could be health and human services, it could be education, animal welfare, the arts and culture, or civic engagement. So we feel very grateful for the partnerships we have with the city, with our friends Realize Bradenton, who I see here today, and so many people that work hard to build a place where everyone can contribute. You know, over the years, Manatee Community Foundation has worked hard to give everyone agency and voice. We are a place where everyone can come to the table and talk about their vision for the community, their aspirations for what they see working well to make this a community where everyone can participate. So we look forward to doing more of that. We look forward to another 25 years, and we thank all of you for your commitment to what it means to give, whether it's giving your time, talent, or treasure. So I'm Susie Bowie. I'm the executive director for another couple of days here. I'm going to turn it over to Jeannie Kirkpatrick, who is our board chair, and Simone Peterson, our community investment officer. She does all the hard work. The donors bring the money in, and Simone spends the money, right, in the community according to their vision. So Jeannie, let's say a few words.
I too want to thank all of you for this honor. It's been my privilege to serve this fabulous organization. And being part of Manatee County and Bradenton, I really think this organization has truly helped so many different people, individuals. It doesn't have to be a group. We've helped individuals. We were one of the first responders to the hurricane and managed to get dollars from other foundations to help us help our community and those surrounding us. I stand here as a sad person too, knowing that we are losing Susie. And I'd just like everyone to give her a great applause because she has done so much for our organization and this community. Thank you.
Simone, would you like to say a couple of words about community investment and how we give back?
Hi, good morning. Simone Peterson, Community Investment Officer. I have the pleasure of working with our different nonprofits to help strengthen the community and the people that live and work here. One of the biggest things that we're involved in right now is our scholarships. So if you know of any high school students who are looking to go off to college or a trade school or other post-secondary goal or education, please have them apply for one of our scholarships. In addition to what our board chair, Jeannie, was saying about the hurricane response, that's another way, again, working with nonprofits, help furthering their goals, because without our nonprofits in our community, we wouldn't be as far along as we are. So again, thank you for your support, and thank you both, Susie and Jeannie, for your support as well.
Thank you. And just a couple of words. I can't let either all three of you get away, but especially two of you. Of course, Jeannie I've known since I was a young person on the Boys and Girls Club board, and with great mentorship and going through those things. And I was so glad when you took over the part of the Community Foundation, because what you've done in our community, not as well as financially give back with you and your husband, but just what you're doing to keep giving back, because it's easy to give back a little bit and then move on, but you're continuing to do that, and that's something that I think inspires a lot of us. So thank you for that, and it obviously the diversity in the Manatee Community Foundation makes it even more important to our community, because we know Manatee County has money, and sometimes our neighbors to the south try to outdo us, but we wanted our own. So, and we're glad it's in the city of Bradenton. And then obviously meeting Susie over the years and doing some things and going through it. And, I look at it as sad that she's leaving, but when you can have somebody go on to a bigger and better job, that means good things have happened in our community because they're looking at it. You always want people to move up and do better for themselves, but as well as to serve the community. And I don't think she'll go far from our community, because we always now have another in with somebody else. So we're proud to call you a good friend and a great leader in our community, and we're going to miss you. And Simone, I love you from the standpoint of your energy and what you're doing, and keep it up, because that's what it's about. So thank you for all that you do. Anyone else? Thank you very much. Get a picture there. Jeannie will get a picture. Thank you. Have a good day. Madam Clerk?
The next item on the agenda is recognition from community organization for Chief Melanie Bevan.
You here? All right. Good morning.
Mayor and councilors. On the behalf of the new Manatee Broncos cheer and football, I would like to present a plaque to the chief in the Bradenton Police Department for all they do for our football in our league. Chief.
Chief.
As the chief comes, obviously I'm Shamika, and my husband Charles Standiford. We have served on this organization since 2015, and it's more than just about football and cheer. Due to circumstances that they can't control, a lot of these kids grow up in difficult homes and areas, and we just use this avenue to give back, to give them something to do. But we try to fill in. It's not common. It's common for like my husband to attend, say, lunch with dad, with these kids, because they don't have a parent to be able to do those type of things with them. And obviously we try to provide tutoring, mentorship with these kids, and to keep them to falling to a victim of their own circumstances. So it takes a lot. It takes a village. And Chief Bevan, along with her team with Bradenton Police Department, has been a great partnership to help us into keeping these kids off the street. And so we just really appreciate everything that they do. Anytime we call, they're right there. So thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I'm merely a conduit for this award. This goes out to the men and women of the Bradenton Police Department who consistently serve as role models, who are out there day in and day out providing a great example for the youth in our community. And I've partnered with a lot of community organizations over my almost 37-year policing career, and I'll tell you, this one's one of the best. These folks really care. They provide a great outlet for these kids, and they give them hope, they give them a future, and they make our community better. And so, but it's these folks back there that are doing the heavy lifting. I just have to look good in front of everybody. That's it. But thank you very much. And Charles and Shamika, you guys do a great job for the city, and your volunteerism is just incredible. So thank you. So.
Thank you, and keep up the great work. I know it's a lot, and for that many years, so thank you. Madam Clerk?
The next item on the agenda is Fire Department Employee Recognition.
Chief Gear? We're having too many of these.
We are. I think Tim Gear, Fire Chief, Bradenton Fire Department. I'd warned y'all, I think, a couple meetings ago that we were going to have a host of these this year, and it's good for these folks. Unfortunate for us with all the experience we're losing this year. And so today we're here to recognize Kenny Langston, Fire Marshal Kenny Langston, as you all know. And also, before I forget, this is Chief Stacy Bailey from Parish Fire, and he's going to present an award on behalf of the Manatee County Fire Chiefs Association. So this is kind of bittersweet. Kenny was hired by the Bradenton Fire Department nearly 28 years ago. After quickly excelling as a firefighter, Kenny was promoted to fire inspector, where he honed and enhanced his fire prevention skills. In 2001, he was awarded Fire Officer of the Year and was also commended for outstanding performance on an arson case. And going back, that was a big problem that we had in that particular year. And I think all of us here were involved in that. But Kenny would play a role in apprehending the suspect and charging. In addition to those honors, he served on the Manatee County Emergency Services team for 15 years. Kenny's desire to increase his knowledge and enjoyment of every new challenge led to his promotion to Deputy Fire Marshal and ultimately Fire Marshal in 2005. During his tenure, Kenny has displayed exemplary skills when informing and engaging with businesses and members of the community about fire safety issues. While serving as the city's fire marshal, he has also served in charitable capacities, working with Community Haven as Fire Santa. That goes back as long as I can remember. The Muscular Dystrophy Association International Association of Firefighters, that's the MDA boot drive, as we all know it, Fill the Boot campaign. I can't say enough about that. I think we won numerous awards in the county for that and in the region from MDA, and that's all because of Kenny's hard work. Part of the Fire Charities Fishing Tournament, Lakewood Ranch High School training, life member of Lakewood Ranch, Future Farmers of America, and many others that we probably don't list. And as a final note, as much as Kenny loves the fire service, we know that he loves his family even more. We'll look forward to spending time with him, and especially his grandson, Brendel, which I think is here today. So Kenny, on behalf of the Bradenton Fire Department, this is your retirement plaque, and it doesn't say enough about your service to the community and your years of service to the city and its residents and keeping us safe. So thank you very much.
Wow, what a great opportunity to, that I get today. Kenny and I go way back to the Braden River Fire Department. And back in those days, we competed against each other for employment. So it was highly competitive back then. We also both came and worked for the city of Bradenton, and which was, a milestone in my life. And, Kenny has always been there, him and his team, Chris as well. For Parish, there's a lot happening, and for having the resources to go. So I don't think we realize the experience that's walking out the door. But he does a great job of passing that information on, sharing it with other people throughout the fire agencies, and that's greatly needed. So it's my honor to present to Kenny the Manatee County Fire Chiefs Association Career Retirement Award. Fire Marshal Kenneth Langston for 44 years of fire service. Starting at the Samoset Fire Department in 1979. The mayor said he was 12.
Well, yeah.
Through 1983, the Sarasota Bradenton Airport from 1983 to 1990, Braden River Fire District 1991 to 1996, and the Bradenton Fire Department to 1986 till present. We thank you for your long-standing service to the citizens of the city of Bradenton and Manatee County.
I'm just, before you go, I wanted to say that one thing, that when you and I really got to know each other, it was over at Ironwood, when I got on the council, and they were having issues with their pipes and all the things, and it wasn't a fun meeting, that first one, but I was so impressed how you kept going back to help figure out the situation. It wasn't a City of Bradenton situation, it was a residential situation, but the city was very well represented by you going back and forth and working it to where it was amicable to get fixed and all of that. So that made my life easier as the elected official, but I appreciate that, and I know that's continued on for all the years and before, so thank you for that.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of you for the opportunity.
Take your time.
Told you not to, and I end up. Just thank you all.
Let us get in on the picture with all of them.
We're going to take a quick group photo, so give us 1 minute. You guys go shoulder to shoulder, line up. We got a lot of folks. Yeah, I was thinking maybe if you guys get up in you got to go shoulder to shoulder.
Back, Chief, back up to the...
All right. Hey guys, I think we're going to back up behind the podium. We're going to go behind the podium. Back up behind the podium.
There we go.
Too late.
And you might have to hold him.
Most of these guys are pretty tall, so.
We're not even taller than you yet. Smile. More for Doug. Thank you.
And Kenny won't have to answer his phone at night anymore. I think we've all called him at 2 in the morning every night for 27 years. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Kenny. Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
Don't be a stranger.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to jump off the agenda a little bit, and under one of our ordinances, it's going to be pulled, so I didn't know if there was anybody here for, and I guess delayed till a future meeting, but Mr. Perry, do you want to kind of go over that real quick, and just while we're pulling it, and then if anybody's here, they don't have to stay for until that.
Thank you, Mayor. Under item 7D, which is on final passage, second reading, vacation rentals, this issue basically needs to kind of go back and be tweaked a little bit. There's different communities of interest from the industry itself that's lobbying in Tallahassee for state intervention. There already is preemptive legislation on the books. Additionally, the industry locally of folks in the real estate community that operate vacation rentals, and of course our community interest of occupancy, safety, quality of life, and quiet use and enjoyment of property. And so to that extent, we really want to take a little bit deeper dive and more policy review if we go to modify this particular ordinance that's currently on the books, how it can meet and balance those needs.
So is there anyone here today that was going to speak at the public hearing? So not seeing anyone, any suggestions, Mr. Rudisell, just?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think if it's going to be pulled, people should have an opportunity to address it if they want, because it was advertised as a public hearing, but I think you've done that.
All right.
To that extent, I would request them just, do we need a motion to table that, Mr. DeSalle, or can we just do that administratively?
I think staff can pull it off the agenda.
All right, perfect. All right, thank you, Mr. Perry. All right, at this time, we're moving on to citizen comment. As we know, a citizen comment will be accepted on any non-agenda items. Comments will be accepted on the public hearings and agenda items at the appropriate time. When you come forward, you'll have 3 minutes. The council will not interact during those 3 minutes with you. You'll have, at the end of the citizen comment, if there's any comments that will be made, that time will happen. This is a business meeting, so there is no cheering or clapping when different people talk or go through things. It's more of just we listen, we hear, we'll comment. If you need help, sometimes we'll send out a staff member with you to try to address something at that time. And this is not a time for personal attacks. If the personal attacks are out there, we will ask you to stop at that moment. And so we'll move forward. When you come forward, I've got David Woodhouse. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
David Woodhouse, 1400 First Avenue West, Bradenton, Florida.
Thank you.
For those who are not familiar, that is the building to the right of the Central Library. On behalf of many of the residents of the building, they want to know why there is no public comment meeting in Ward 3. Right now, there are 5 meetings in Ward 1, 2, 4, and 5, so they feel left out. And I spoke to you before. My background is as a professional engineer and geologist in foundation design. The building we're in is a mere 67 feet from the proposed development, if it occurs, at the library. These buildings are on piles. If you're looking at a 22-story building next door to us, you're looking at a foundation that could go very deep. And I'm talking to you about piles. And the concern right now for the board of directors in our building is damage to our building from driving piles. So if everybody here can witness, on a pro bono basis, I will offer you my services to review any foundation design that you come up with if you do develop a central library building. And if you do that, you have to drive piles unless there's something unknown below there that would preclude that. So that's my comment. Thank you very much.
All right, and when you're walking out, Mrs. Jeannie will walk out with you and give you some information on meetings. All right, thank you. Now we'll have Ruth Beltran. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ruth Beltran, 11543 Woodleaf Drive, Bradenton, Florida. I can't believe that I'm here again. I was here back in 2019 regarding Mr. Rodney Joe's case and what happened and the injustice that happened with him. I have copies of email, direct email between me and Chief Vivian, and the answers that she provides clearly show the cover-up and the corruption that took place when the police department, the Bradenton Police Department, was harassing Mr. Jones. This has cost them a great deal, and I just want to read to you some of the responses that Chief Vivian provided, because it's all conflicted, and I don't understand why you as the mayor have not conducted an investigation into this. There's evidence that you can use to conduct a fair investigation, and you will be able to see what happened here. Chief Vivian, at the time, back in April 2019, stated that there were no police officers at the property, around the property of Mr. Jones, around in the neighborhood. And come to find out that there was. Her own responses do say that Deputy Christopher Catarest was there at that time. This is after his supervisor, Sergeant Johnson, advised that he did not recall any traffic stops conducted by any member of his unit, which included Catarest. There's also information here that there was no laptop, because we did request the GPS signal. There was no laptop. However, he was there conducting a traffic stop. How do you conduct a traffic stop without any laptops? I mean, just the corruption, what is here is, it's enough for you to conduct an investigation. There is evidence. And I'm wondering what the problem is. What is the problem? This has caused Mr. Jones a great deal. He had to even remove his daughter from his house at that time, his teenage daughter, in fear for his life. Police officers just sitting in front of his property for no reason at all. And what is the problem? Conduct a proper investigation. We cannot have a police chief that is actually allowed to do anything and everything. This is just outrageous that is the case. I was also reading here that complaints are at the discretion of the chief of police. She gets to decide what gets investigated and what doesn't. I really need you to do the right thing and conduct a proper investigation. If not, you could get ready for litigation, because this is where this is hurting. This is going to cost you millions of dollars in litigation. There is enough evidence. Just look at it. Don't turn your eye and look at the evidence. It's right here. It's just outrageous that Chief Evans is receiving an award when she has done so much damage to the black community right here in Bradenton, and it has gone unchecked by you and even by the mayor prior to this. It's outrageous. Conduct an investigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, Bill Sanders, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Bill Sanders, 2502 Riverside Drive East. I'm here to speak truth to power and to ensure honesty and transparency. On January 18th, this council met, and on page 5, there was a Public Works change order for Riverwalk. That change order was $2.8 million. It was signed one day after I left office. I obviously wonder what that was about. But more importantly, there was no conflict of counsel that approved it or looked at it. And this extends from, and if you'll notice there, it says it's on the consent agenda. It wasn't on the consent agenda. It was pulled off the consent agenda, but you failed to do that because you probably thought that you was going to get criticized for putting it on a consent agenda, a $2.8 million item, which I would have. So I always bring documents here to prove, because I've been notoriously told that I'm lying about these things. So I bring the proof to you, and I have more. So, Mr. Brown, we, on June 12th, 2019, I've only been in office 6 months, and we approved this Riverwalk extension for a maximum amount of $7 million, not $10 million. The council voted 4-0 for that. Myself and Pat Roth voted for it, and you weren't present, Mr. Mayor. And why you weren't present was because you'd resigned. You resigned to run for mayor, so you weren't here. So how do you say we always intended to increase this by $3 million when you weren't even here? You went to the election office and followed the resignation or withdrawal of Mayor Poston. At 1:28, at 3:30, you filed 3:28. But you actually did it quicker than that. You filed, and these are date stamped, at 1:20, 8 minutes. You obviously were there with Mayor Poston, because you can't fill out these documents in less than 8 minutes. So you do not have.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
You told the public. we've spent
Mr. Sanders.
$10 million.
Out of order, please.
We've spent $10 million
Freddie
and more,
Edwards.
and you fooled the
Freddie
public,
Edwards.
and you didn't have conflict counsel. This is not over. This needs to be investigated.
We'll have, and.
Needs to be investigated. I'd like to have more time.
No,
I'd like to have
you're out
more
of
time for
order.
the truth to come out.
Officer, would you please come forward? You're out of order. We've got, his 3 minutes is up. Freddie Edwards is up next. And I would hope that everyone in the room that is talking now would stay till the end, because let the council members and the mayor do the response at the correct time, and you'll see some information that is incorrect. Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Please state your name and address for the record. And one thing before you start, Mr. Edwards, do not start his time yet. There has been some comments from the audience during the speakers. If we hear any more, that person will be asked to leave, and comments that can be heard loud enough from this chair. So, Mr. Edwards, you have the floor.
Hello.
Thank you.
I really just
Please state your name and address for the
My name is Freddie Edwards. For the record, I just want to address the fact that the police officer are not answering phone calls. I have a child that's in a there's child trafficking going on right down the road at Family Creations. My daughter, I am the father of my daughter. I have paternity established with the vital statistics under Chapter 63. There's a violation of Chapter 63. Anytime you, entity or anyone with the state that is putting a child up for adoption, they're supposed to search the putative father registry. That is a requirement of the law. This entity is not researching the putative father registry before they place my child up for adoption or address the courts of Manatee County. I called the police and let them know that this was a violation of law. No one they won't allow me to make any calls. They're telling me that this is not a criminal act when this is a violation of the law. I am the father, and at this point, my daughter, she's somewhere I don't even know. They won't give me information, which I know that I have rights to my child. I continue to call the state attorney. I'm in contact with Tallahassee as well. I'm letting them know what's going on, and they have to handle it on a local level. They're telling me to contact law enforcement. My local law enforcement is failing me. My child. They failed me and my child because I found these affidavits and trying to find affidavits with the local law enforcement, and I haven't seen my child since birth. This is a crime going on. I don't need the whole 3 minutes. This is a crime going on, and they won't allow me to file the proper paperwork to get her.
Next, we have Karen Taylor.
Mayor Brown, council members, and Bradenton community.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Karen Taylor. I live at 222 12th Street West here in Bradenton. I want to thank you for allowing us to come today. I have a row of two rows of people who have come to join me today. Thank you for allowing us to come and express our views and our frustrations in some cases. Bradenton has been a beautiful town for many years, and for what seemed to be for a while a well-kept secret, it is now flourishing in every way. Sadly, however, it has lost some of its uniqueness and quaint appeal because of the progress that we're making in the city. Now, the latest concern we have is the big screen, and I know you all have already addressed this, but we want to mention it again. The big screen to be attached to the new garage at the corner of Old Main Street and 3rd Avenue. I believe the man initiating it related in the newspaper words like, big cities have these screens, and we want to be a big city too. I'm not so sure about that, but here are some of our concerns. It's very much, the screen idea is very much akin to reading text, which we know is very dangerous when used in cars while driving or when walking down a street, lost in whatever we're reading. Old Main Street and 3rd Avenue is a very, very busy crossing. watching those who are trying to decide whose turn it is at the four-way stops is bad enough, much less to have someone distracted by trying to read what's on a screen or in front of them or to the side of them. There will be pedestrians in peril as drivers will not have full attention on those walking across the streets. The noise from the blaring announcements, or probably more music, declaring activities and events will add to the already noisy bikers and the boys with their muffler toys and the deep bass rhythms bonking, literally shaking our windows as they drive through, or worse yet, park on our street. With all our lights and enough to keep daylight 24/7, why would we add more flickering flashes from screen changes on the big screen? Will it take an accident on the corner, or a person being run over, or an angry driver in a rage because of someone stopping or slowing down to read the big screen before our city realizes really how much is enough? Consider, too, those with low vision, an amount of deafness who will also be in peril.
Thank you, Mrs. Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Call up next Rodney Jones. Please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
And Mayor, just to Ms. Taylor's concerns and some of the neighbors,
We can talk to him afterwards.
about that,
Yeah,
because I don't
yeah,
have to address
yeah,
it.
yeah. We'll address all that at the end. Sure. Yeah. Put paperwork down if she wants. It comes up on our screen too.
All right.
So put it on there, set it on there, and then it'll pop up. So, yep. Please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Rodney Joe. A point of clarity, can I respectfully ask for additional time?
Now you have
coming down here for 4 years. Let me finish.
It's 3 minutes, and it has started, so you want to go
Can you
ahead.
believe this? This is unreal. It's not going to help you. I mean, it actually proves our case, because what only reason I'm here is gathering the last piece of evidence that I need for our DOJ complaint. We are already active in the current DOJ complaint, I've told you before. Everyone sees what's going on. What you're trying to do is limit public comment, thinking like because you create some Shangri-La in this room that there isn't outside forces at play. What you've done is actually encapsulated yourself in some of the most perverse civil rights violations I think I've ever seen in all my 25 years as an activist, former president of the NAACP. I'm a college graduate with my 2 cognates being political science and African American studies. So I'm telling you, you have really done a real nice job on yourself, and Mr. Rudisell, if he's half the attorney that Blaylock and Walters claims their attorneys are, you should know that you guys are in big trouble in this room. Because what you've done is basically engaged in a cover-up. Ruth Beltran is a federal investigator, former federal investigator for the Department of Labor. I called her in to remove myself from the situation to do the investigation, and she's found gross misconduct. You've got 2 documents that she showed you that are contradictory. We've got a number 2 police guy here that's now involved in the cover-up because you should have known better and said something. So you don't have auspice over the federal government. Governor DeSantis, as much as you guys believe, I don't know what happened when Trump came in office. Everybody wanted to be like Trump, but you guys are no Donald Trump. I'll support Trump before I support you guys. At least I know where he is. We don't know where you guys are. You guys have lied. Mary Ann, you're accused now. The CRA director has come forward and said that you as a city councilman were in the back room bullying her and harassing her till she quit because you were trying to manipulate the CRA. This isn't the first time this is being said. We're just coming forward in a much more organized manner now, a very direct manner. We can't get legal, so now we're going through the FBI second floor in Tampa and filing our complaints that immediately puts you also into a civil situation as well. I'm just telling you, you're already named in a case number. You're guilty by oath of office for the simple fact that you as elected officials have engaged in a cover-up where blacks have been coming down here, just like the man that ran out of the room here, and saying that you guys will not do investigations from the black community. It is thoroughly documented. It has been thoroughly presented to you over and over again. Gene has encouraged me to go to the DOJ, so guess what? That's exactly what we did. So here again, you've got to do something. Mary Ann, you should say something today. You're implicated in everything. You're the operative for Blaylock and Walters. Your husband is the infamous Mark Barnaby that's caught up in contract rigging over in Palmetto. I mean, Bill Sanders has got you guys dead to the right on contract rigging, and you just go on to the next agenda item like that's going to save you. It's outside your sphere of influence. The only thing you're doing now is taking time away from your families and destroying your careers.
Thank you, Mr.
Have
Jones.
a wonderful day.
We'll move on to, I believe it's Ativa Brown. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Lativa Brown. I'm really new to all this, but I'm real big on my rights and fighting for my community. I've been corrupted, just dealing with my apartment complex. I lost my home for 3 months due to the hurricane. Bradenton Village, I've been doing 8 months investigating with over 200 tenants. We've been living in black mold. I had a miscarriage 4 months ago, dealing with everything. Me and my kids was homeless. I never been homeless before. And the crazy thing about it is Bradenton Village been stealing tenants' money for the last couple of years. I feel like nobody have not been digging in it. It done went all over social media, and this is why I'm here, because it's out of my hands. And now they actually trying to sue me when I'm already 10 steps ahead of them of trying to sue them for basically I paid rent. They stole the government money. The government gave me rental assistance, and they can't find the money. Also, Florida gave me money for rental assistance, and they couldn't be able to find that. They actually trying to put out an eviction letter for me. Me and my kids, they moved. We was homeless due to the hurricane. The house got flooded in 904. They gave me 3 different dummy leases for the last 3 years. Like I say, I have 200 tenants in my emails and everything else. I can show more proof, but I feel like this is something that should be looked at. I went to the police. They told me they can't do anything about it because it's all civil rights matters, and right now I'm currently dealing with Gulf Coast Legal Service. So that's why I'm here today, to see if someone can help me out, because I'm out here doing it by myself, and rent is too high. Rent is going up, and they just, they ain't stealing from me. They stole it from y'all. They stole it from the government. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm here to. A lot of people couldn't be able to come in today, but I do have everybody, all the tenants. I got 200 tenants. Once again, 200 tenants with all the pictures of their houses, and they built those Bradenton Village. They built it so cheap, and now the years bypass, and the house is breaking down on people, and they just want us to keep paying rent. But they steal it from us, and now they have a new property manager is right now trying to clean up everything. So I don't know if anyone here today can help me out. I was told to come here, and this is why I'm here today, and I will continue to keep coming until I get help. I went to 10 different news people, so you guys will be seeing me on the news. This is something that you guys need to pick up, because a lot of tenants are losing their homes, getting evicted because the property manager are stealing money. And that's something that need to be looked at. Y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you. The next on the list is Taylor Nabors.
Good morning. My name is Taylor Nabors. I am the Chief Administrative Officer at Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness. Our address is 1750 17th Street. Building C1, Sarasota, Florida 34234. We are an administrative agency that functions within Bradenton, Manatee County, Sarasota for our continuum of care and homeless crisis response system. I'm essentially here today to thank the council for the recent additions and clarifications to Ordinance 4008. This was recently discussed at a previous meeting. Again, we just want to thank you for making those changes. Additionally, as the council is aware, the Salvation Army Manatee has a current request to permit a reallocation of space on their property to convert storage space to emergency shelter for women experiencing homelessness. Women experiencing homelessness are highly vulnerable, and this is more so now given the affordable housing crisis that we have not only in the state of Florida but across the country, as well as natural disasters that have augmented the homeless crisis as well. Salvation Army Manatee has already accomplished an incredible amount of work in securing resources and funding to complete this project. The creation of the shelter space for women is a critical component of our homeless crisis response system, and will really help a lot of women secure a safe place while they're working on a plan to secure permanent housing to end their homelessness. So I just wanted to mention that to you guys today, and thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more at this time, Katerina Jurka-Syrian. Please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Ekaterini Gerakio, Siren, 2801 Forestry Drive, Clearwater. A previous citizen mentioned my title and my name, and I don't believe this is the appropriate forum to do any of this. I have never spoken to Mr. Jones. He was not present, and I don't understand why my name and it keeps getting brought up. So I just wanted to state that for the record.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have no more cards. Council, or Mr. Perry, I think you wanted to state something first, then we'll go to the council.
Sure, just briefly as to, I think it was Ms. Taylor that was representing the 12th Street community nearby as it relates to the video board. There's a couple of things, and I think it's important to just get the information out right to some of the folks that live there, is that video board will not be in dynamic operational mode where it's actually broadcasting video unless bollards are up and it shuts the traffic down at the Manatee 4th and 3rd Street area. And it's going to be a pretty, I don't want to say a rare occasion, but it'll be during special events. So it's not going to be constant. I think it's important that you guys know that. What it will be used for when it's not being used for special events in dynamic mode, we're contemplating is maybe signage for the garage that doesn't have audio, parking this way, that type of thing, because as you know, the garage entrance that's on the other side is a little bit difficult to identify. Maybe the publicizing community events in signage. As it relates to traffic distraction, the National Institute Traffic Safety Board put out a summary of 470 different studies around the country about that. And there's now operating manuals for the State Department of Transportation for these types of boards that you typically would see, on any major arterial. Typically that's what they're on and the like. And so you'll see that they don't change, but like every 20 seconds or 30 seconds. I don't know what the standards are, but it's to minimize traffic. We're also mindful of the noise. And so we're in the process of trying to address these through some operation policies, and we're mindful of you being residents nearby at the Westminster complex. I'll leave it at that. And moving forward, Dr. St. Luce and myself and some of our team will be addressing that. And so we'll try to do a little bit of outreach to let you know a little bit more of where we're at and what those restrictions will be, so that you'll have good information. And I appreciate you all coming down here today.
No, and I think that's important to say. Obviously, the correct information, and you heard the pastor this morning with her first comments were about, getting the information correctly out and doing that. And that's important to us. So this was something that was well thought out, and it's more of, like you said, when there is special events to be able to do things. Winter Wonderland, which you guys have always played a huge factor in your community, will be one of those events that we're even excited about to have it. So we appreciate you being here and sharing your thoughts, as well as to get the correct information to spread through the neighborhood.
And just closing, Ms. Taylor, you're absolutely right about progress. It has its positives and its negatives, no doubt.
So thank you. Any other council person want to speak before I do? Mr. Kramer? Yes.
Mr. Woodhouse, are you still here? No? Did you leave, Jeannie?
Yeah, I think he did. And Jeannie had given him some information.
Okay. Just want to, for everyone else in Ward 3 who's here, including the folks leaving, there are dates set. We're waiting for one location to get back to us to be able to confirm a date. But Tuesday, February 21st, 6 to 8 p.m. right here in the council chambers. And then Friday, February 24th, 11 a.m. down at Bradenton Tropical Palms in their, I believe, the Queen Palm Room.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, in the auditorium, which seats quite a few, at 11 a.m. on Friday the 24th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for that? All right, I do have some comments, and obviously, for many years, misinformation has been going out there, as well as was actually proved by the documentation that Citizen Sanders put up there today. When you see he put up a meeting agenda that stated June 12th, 2019. My wife and I were on our wedding anniversary trip of 25 years. So that was a trip that I was gone. Then he put up evidence of June 10th, 2020, when I did resign. So again, information that by his own evidence proved him wrong, that I didn't resign. So when you look at it, I didn't vote on something because I wasn't here, and then he put it that I wasn't here because I was down at the Supervisor of Elections office. So look at the evidence that was actually produced on the board there. June 12th, 2019, I missed a meeting. I wasn't there. June 10th, 2020, when I did resign to run for mayor, he said that I'd voted on something at that time. The dates, all you gotta do is look at the evidence of the dates, and that's the misinformation that continues to be out there. So, you know, something when somebody comes right at you with their own evidence is incorrect, you know, it's gonna be there. So, yes, Ms. Moore?
To the same point regarding the consent agenda item for the Riverwalk expansion budget adjustment, the last meeting, for the record, I asked that exact question and asked whether it was part of the original contract, and it looks like from the minutes that that was voted on and passed 4-1.
Yeah.
And the answer was in the affirmative, that this budget item was actually anticipated as part of the original contract to do the entire Riverwalk expansion.
Right. So facts and evidence matter, and so anyway.
And preserving a record.
Right, and preserving the record when you have it right there, so. All right, any other council comments? At this time, we'll move on. Please, no, you're out of order. We're out of order, Mr. Jones. We will move on to consent agenda. Officer, would you please come forward, and there's a disruption in the audience?
How do I get help? I mean, how do I get help if nobody will help me? I'm down here for help, and now you tell me I gotta get arrested or get jacked out of the room because I'm simply asking for help? I'm asking for help. You told all of those people, like, where to go to or what department.
Mayor, if I could interject at this point, I think Mr. Jones has been advised multiple times by this council and chair as it relates to he can file any complaint he wants with his Department of Justice, the state FDLE that's already gone through this. I am getting a little bit tired of taking good citizens and their time and their energy to come down here and going through a repeated antagonism and these bold allegations that are entirely frivolous, in my opinion, to instigate trouble. Now, everybody has the right. He's had the right. I've been here for 2 years. I don't know how many meetings that he hasn't had something to say. And to that extent, I would request further admonishment.
We're going to take a recess. Back from recess. Just before we go to consent agenda, I would like to kind of explain, we've had some information and things that have been done over the last several years where, you know, asking an individual to leave is not an easy thing to do, but when individuals flip you off, they make innuendos and they keep interrupting a meeting, we have a code of conduct that we are going to stick by, that we've stuck by since I've become mayor, and abided by it. So when you have yelling from the audience, we are going to address that instantly and take care of it. We are total open government here. Information is out there. We are going to continue to have it, but we want the correct information out there, and that's important for our public. And as you heard some people talk today, when they found out the correct information, it made what we were doing a little bit easier to go through and understand. And that's the most important thing, to understand it. And when individuals continue to come up and put propaganda or lies out there, we do have to listen for 3 minutes, but we don't have to respond when they've been responded over and over and over again. Things before my term and now in my term, and we have responded to a lot of it, but we will continue to keep the citizen comment, and we are abiding by our citizen comment policy, and that's what's going to stay until it changes, until a policy changes. So thank you for that indulgence. And I do know consent agenda, there is one item that has been asked to pull before we get a motion, and that's F, that will have some further detail. But so the chair will entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
And Mayor, just before we get to that motion, to perfect the record, I have had the opportunity to speak with all counselors on the consent agenda items, give them the opportunity to review their papers that were submitted in the packages with the memo and supporting documentation. Many of the counselors had inquiries into specific issues on there, and we tried to do this in a very informed basis prior to the meeting. So to make allegations that things just fly through, that they're not discussed, they are discussed within the rules of proper sunshine and the like.
Thank you. So chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with F being pulled.
Who wants to do it?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda with all exception of F.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, all right. And is any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 2.
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Okay, carries 4-0.
And
All right.
on to item number F on the consent agenda that was pulled, Mayor and Council, I'd like to invite Katerina from CRA to come up and tell us a little bit about some technical deficiencies that I think were in the memo that weren't entirely accurate. And I'll leave it up to her to further provide the information to that.
Good morning, Katerina Gerakio-Siren, CRA Executive Director. I requested from Mr. Perry to pull the item. As I read it today, I noticed that it referred to the CRA language instead of the city language. So it's the technicality is that the motion we would like is that the mayor and city council and city administrator execute the necessary documentation. In your agenda item, it said the CRA chair and CRA director. So the background remains the same. The commitment that was made on September 14th, 2022 was that the city would waive the impact fees. The estimate was approximately $295,000. So the motion before you is to support the development of this affordable housing project for seniors in the 14th Street CRA. It will be approximately 120 units, and so it's a technical issue, but I think it's important as they're going into the closing that you have the right legal information to vote on.
Okay, so Mr. Rudisill, anything other than just approving it with the adjusted information?
That's right. I think it would just be a motion to approve with the amended recommended motion from staff.
Okay. All right, and that's down there, so, all right. All right, Chair will entertain a motion for F as amended.
I make a motion to approve item F on the consent agenda as amended in our meeting today.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right, motion by Ms. Barnaby, seconded by Mr. Kramer. Any further discussion? All right, we'll start the vote in Ward 3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
Carries 4-0. Moving on, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. If you'll let me, I'll administer the oath.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone wishing to address City Council during the following public hearing will please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and representations which you are about to present to this board will be truthful and accurate? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Resolution 23-13, second reading and public hearing. A resolution of the City Council for the City of Bradenton, Florida, designating a brownfield area to be called the Riverview 6 Green Reuse Area within the city for property located at 813 6th Avenue West. Folio numbers 326-98-00003, 326-99-00001, 327-0000007, 327-01-00005, 327-02-00003, 327-03-00001, 327-04-00009, 327-05-00006, and 327-06-00004 of approximately 1.466 acres in the brownfield area for the purpose of environmental site rehabilitation and economic redevelopment and providing for an effective date.
Good morning.
Good morning. Greg DeLong, Assistant Director, Planning and Community Development. I want to thank Tamara for reading that introduction. I do apologize for it, but we have to do it. I'm here before you today. We have the Housing Trust Group has approached the city about placing a brownfield designation on this future project over at 813 6th Avenue West. This is an 80-unit affordable housing project with ground floor retail, so we're excited about that. We are really just a pass-through as this process. The state will make the final designation. So what I'm going to do is pass this off to Brett Bruman from the Goldstein Environmental Law Firm to kind of talk a little bit about the project and why the request. And Delia Tabora from the Housing Trust Group is also here. And if you have any questions for me, just let me know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Brett Brumman with the Goldstein Environmental Law Firm. Office is at 2100 Ponce de Leon Boulevard in Coral Gables, and we represent the applicant, HTG Riverview 6 Limited. So we're here this morning to respectfully request this council's approval of Resolution 23-13, which would create the Riverview 6 Green Reuse Area at that collection of 9 parcels located at 813 6th Avenue West, and this is pursuant to Florida's Brownfields Redevelopment Act. So Florida's Brownfield Redevelopment Act is a tool for local governments and developers to help overcome complications to redevelopment caused by a property's historical or present uses. The Act has 2 key definitions that I'll just point out briefly today, and then I'll go through an overview of the project, the property's historical uses, the project itself, and I'll be available to answer any questions. So Florida's Brownfields Redevelopment Act defines a brownfield site as real property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which is complicated by actual or perceived environmental contamination. And our second key definition is a brownfield area, which is a contiguous area of one or more brownfield sites, some of which may not be contaminated, and which is being designated by local government by resolution. And that's the process we are going through today. So looking back in history, this property has had several uses that have contributed to a perception of contamination and caused actual contamination in the past. Starting in about 1945, a portion of the property has been used as a gas station as well as automotive repair. That gas station use did result in a release of petroleum product from an underground storage tank. It was detected back in 1992. The contaminated soil was excavated and the property underwent a groundwater monitoring program until 2016. More recently, there's an automotive use on the property. These types of uses are often associated with localized impacts from automotive repair and a collection of fluids below ground, often in below ground hydraulic lift faults. There's also the potential for other underground storage tanks on the property from historical heating oil tanks that may have been there in the past. And it's this combination of historic and current use, more recent uses, that have contributed to the perception of contamination and created the risk that additional contamination could be discovered as redevelopment and subsurface work progresses. And this is exactly the type of property that Florida's Brownfields Redevelopment Program is intended to help a property owner overcome these risks. And it does this through state-based incentives that come at no cost to the city. These include certain targeted incentives to encourage reuse, the cleanup and reuse of these properties for affordable housing, as well as if additional contamination is discovered, programs that help that developer address the contamination using state funds in a more efficient manner. Now, looking towards the future, the applicant intends to construct an 80-unit affordable housing development serving working families earning between 30 and 70% of area median income. It'll be a single 5-story building with a ground floor retail component and your standard community amenities at a multifamily development, including a club room, fitness center, 24-hour security, and an activity room. Construction is scheduled to begin relatively soon and will wrap up in mid-2024. Now, stepping back and looking at the process more generally, we like to refer to it as a green reuse area rather than a brownfield area because the end result does not reflect what is there currently. We are taking the property, addressing any issues that are there, and we are reusing it for a better purpose. These designations are governed by statute, section 376.80 Florida statutes, and a designation requested by a private party for privately owned land. These are governed by subsection 2C. The process is relatively simple. The applicant and local government must provide notice through posting and publication. The statute's commonly interpreted to require that the applicant hold a community meeting, which we held, and I'll discuss in a moment. Then the statute requires 2 public hearings with the local governing board, at the second of which is today, the board will be asked to adopt a resolution following consideration of 5 objective criteria. I'll just briefly touch on each of these criteria for designation. The first is that the designation must be requested by the person who owns or controls the site, and they must agree to both redevelop and rehabilitate the property. That is the case here. The applicant owns the property, they have a redevelopment plan, and they've agreed to address anything that they find as redevelopment progresses. The second is that the rehabilitation or redevelopment must result in economic productivity and create at least 5 jobs on site unless the project will provide affordable housing, in which case that job creation requirement does not apply. But notwithstanding that exception to the rule, the applicant does expect to create jobs on the property with the retail component as well as associated with the management of the building itself. And of course, any multifamily development that provides safe, affordable housing for local residents, that will result in economic productivity in the area and bring new patrons to local businesses. The third criterion is that the redevelopment must be consistent with the local comprehensive plan and be generally permittable in the city. And that's the case here. The project is permitted and is ready to move forward to development. Fourth, the notice must be provided to neighbors and nearby residents, and the applicant must afford those receiving notice opportunity to comment and provide suggestions. We did that. We posted notice on the property of a community meeting, published notice as well. And we also held a community meeting on December 14th, attended by city staff. We had no members of the public attend. These 2 public hearings are additional opportunities for public comment on the item. And finally, the applicant must provide reasonable assurance that they have sufficient financial resources to both complete the redevelopment and the rehabilitation. And we provided that to city staff through our initial request. And the applicant is also associated with Developer Housing Trust Group. They're a well-known developer in the state of Florida. They have the ability to secure additional financial resources depending on anything that might be discovered as redevelopment progresses. And that, I'm available to answer any questions, and I thank you very much for your consideration this morning. Thank you.
Any questions?
I'll just point out quickly, so you provided assurances that your client is able to complete the project in the initial application, and just for the record, they continue, I assume, to have sufficient resources?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, this is a project that is in part assisted by Florida Housing Finance Corporation. So there is an intense application process beforehand to ensure that the project can actually be built. So we provided documents that were also provided to Florida Housing Finance Corporation to the city to show that the funds are there to complete the redevelopment.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is something too that you may or may have got information on or may not have, but it's CRA, City of Bradenton, and Manatee County has been involved. So, we're glad that all 3 groups and show the importance of moving forward with this project. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Madam Clerk?
The next item on the agenda is the second reading and public hearing for Ordinance 3097, an ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 5, Section 2-236 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bradenton, Florida, relating to execution of contracts and deeds of conveyance, amending Chapter 2, Article 5, Section 2-237 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bradenton, Florida, relating to requirements for competitive bidding, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Staff here?
Mayor, if I could take the lead
okay,
on that.
Mr. Perry, okay.
Mayor, Council, item B is basically the parent to item C, which is the child, the resolution that will be coming next. What we're asking for in item B is modification so that certain issues related to procurement, competitive bidding, codification, and the like be reduced to a resolution. Every time we change thresholds or minor policy changes, it has to be changed by ordinance. We're asking in this particular piece of legislation to be able to change that by resolution. Ultimately, council has to vote on that as well. The second part, being the child, as I pointed out, we will show you specifically some of the changes we are intending to make to purchasing requirements, specifically on threshold purchasing. Right now, there's thresholds. They're significantly lower, and they cause problems with us having to go through a great, cumbersome, onerous process to engage in certain procurements and the like. What we did was we looked at those thresholds and compared them basically to surrounding local governments, the city of Sarasota, county of Manatee, the county of Sarasota. I think we looked at Venice and some others. Ms. Fortin will discuss that, but the first item, and I'd like her to address this one at a time, is of course the change in the authority of a modification of the ordinance.
Thank you.
Ms. Fortin.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Corey Fortin, Policy, Planning, and Procedures Administrator. Mr. Perry touched on a bunch of my talking points, but I'm going to go through them anyway. The ordinance before you today, as he said, will allow future changes in the purchasing threshold amounts by resolution rather than going through a change in the Code of Ordinance each time that we need that. Increasing the threshold amounts and authorizing the city administrator to enter into contracts with council's approval at these amounts will allow the city to procure goods and services in a timely manner and avoid delays in provisions of these services. If the ordinance is approved and adopted, the next matter before you will be the resolution that sets forth the proposed threshold amounts. The increased threshold amounts take into account the rising costs of commodities and contractual services since 2007, when the ordinance was last updated. As he indicated, we reviewed and compared our ordinance and thresholds to several surrounding local government procurement policies in determining the proposed threshold amounts that we bring before you today. And both the ordinance and the policy were reviewed and approved by the purchasing manager, the city administrator, the finance director, the city attorney, and we also got input for several of the department heads. Any questions?
All right.
Just one last matter is that in talking with our internal auditors, Carr, Riggs, Ingram, this was a suggestion starting last year that we revise it. Corey's been working on it for quite some time, and as she pointed out, she's spoken with the user departments and procurement and city attorney and the like. So we think we've vetted it fairly closely. As far as the purchasing threshold itself, what is that amount?
There are several different amounts.
Right. They're outlined in the materials that was submitted.
Yes.
But in short, when you look at the chart that Ms. Fortin had provided, and you saw some of those at 100,000 or 250,000, we're recommending 75,000. We think that's sufficient to do the business that we need to do. A city of this size, the types of procurements and the like, we think it's lower than surrounding areas, actually.
And the resolution sets forth, there are 4 different categories, and it sets forth the thresholds for each.
And that's on page 7 of 13 in the documentation, when we get to that part of it.
Right.
So, right. So, all right, well, this is a second reading and a public hearing, so at this time, the chair will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Can I have that last document that you had on here with the other cities? No, I can't have it.
We'll present it afterwards. We'll put it back up.
Well, put it back up, okay. Bill Sanders, 2502 Riverside Drive. I'm opposed to this because we're not a city manager form of government. We're a city administrator form of government, which is quite different. In our charter, we have the right to make Mr. Perry city administrator, but the public has to decide this. This can't be done by council, and it can't be done by ordinance. So you're changing the rules of our charter. Our charter has, matter of fact, our charter doesn't even have a city administrator in it, period. This was done in 2017, which was under some controversy. So we've decided to stay with that form of government, but you're taking away the authority of the council. The council has authority to look at everything over $10,000. Now, perhaps that's too low. I don't know. It probably is. But to increase it to $75,000 means you're not going to see anything unless it goes over that threshold. I don't know how you would vote for that. If I was sitting there, I wouldn't vote for it unless we go to a city manager form of government. And we can do that by putting it on a referendum. So I suggest that we put that on a referendum. You can do it this next election cycle and then do it properly. This is changing the charter by ordinance. And you're changing it quite a bit. And those little cities, there's nothing up here on the monitor, by the way. All those cities you named have city managers or administrators of the county. They're not city administrators, they're managers, which is quite different and has more authority and more say. So why are you doing this? You shouldn't.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Perry, you have anything final to say?
Just briefly, I think the distinction is a distinction without consequence. The 4-page charter doesn't mention anything about pure procurement specifically. This has always been done, from what I've reviewed, by ordinance since 1903 and the establishment of the city. Its last revision, as pointed out by Ms. Fortin, was in 2007. So what we're trying to do is catch up. Things have gotten a little bit more expensive. 2007, I don't know what a dozen of eggs are. They're about $5 now. We need some flexibility to administrate the affairs of the city as it relates to purchasing. It is conceivable that each and every purchase could come before council. I would submit to you that we probably wouldn't get much done, and that wouldn't be a very workable solution, that the current thresholds are sorely under the threshold amounts that are necessary for a modern $150 million budgeted city that provides the full services and entities that the city of Bradenton does. And to that extent, we think we're being very reasonable. Again, it was recommended by CRI, our internal auditors, that we look at it.
Well, I think one thing that I kind of remember coming up in front of us not too long ago was we couldn't buy chemicals for our water treatment plant because the threshold had escalated above that, and we had to wait to a meeting to buy chemicals to treat our water, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So, you know, this is basically just catching up with 15, 16 years of inflation, plus the inflation we're in today. So it's not taking away authority from the council, it's actually making it easier for the city to operate, in my opinion.
It's an excellent point. If I could just finish on that. I know Councilwoman Gonzalez has points. I think what's important to understand that the procurement still has to be met. The way we do procurement generally is through continuing service contracts that go out. When we continuously purchase a commodity or a service, it goes out, it is bid. And so those thresholds for continuing services are a little bit different. They're not the types of commodities that we would do a one-time off, a piggyback type agreement, emergency procurement, sole source. Those are basically the four things. Otherwise, major procurements still have to be RFP'd. This does not change that. What it does do is allow us basically to do smaller procurements without the necessity of competitive full-blown RFPs that theoretically are tied to someone that's already done a competitive RFP, the state, another local government, the like, the piggyback model, or we've done it through a continuing services RFP. Jim bought on a bunch of folks on continuing services for commonly encountered public works, for I think it was pre-construction services and the like. And so we have several of those people. The work we're doing in the city needs to be nimble, it needs to be efficient, and we think this is a pretty common model.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
I do have points that I intended to talk about, so just point of order. I was waiting until it was a motion, a second, and then discussion, unless you'd like me to do it now.
No, if you have a motion, and then we can.
Well, I don't have a motion. There are things that I would like, that I think that we should discuss.
Chair will entertain a motion for Ordinance 3097.
So moved.
All right. By
Second.
Kramer. Mr. Kramer to approve. Seconded by Ms. Barnaby. Ms. Moore?
I think a point of clarification, and please correct me if I'm wrong, either Mr. Perry or Ms. Forthing. So we have the ordinance before us, and then as she mentioned, we have the resolution to follow. What I think is important to be clear about is the ordinance changes a couple of things that are important to note. The first one is ordinance versus resolution. The competing interests are the city staff's ability to be nimble in decision-making versus an ordinance which requires two public hearings, or two readings and a public hearing. So that adds time, but it also increases the ability of the public to make comment and on proposed changes in the thresholds. The threshold question in the resolution that would come before us secondly are not problematic in my opinion. There are four categories. They start at 25,000. They incrementally increase up to 75,000. I agree that they are in line with neighboring cities and county administrations. And they also specifically, that policy states that they cannot be subdivided out. My reading of the resolution is that an entire contract has to come before, in that totality of the contract, you can't parcel them out, so that the city staff has the ability to procure specifically, by breaking it up, basically. So that said, I support that. My issue with the ordinance as written is, like I said, just I think that we should have a comment and note to the public that by going to resolution, we are taking away the two readings, the time that the public would have to comment on something. The second issue that I have with the ordinance as written is the revision to section 2, subsection, let me see, section 2, B2, which is in the event of an emergency. And I appreciate that an emergency requires that level of nimble action. However, we have deleted the requirement that anyone who's a staff or city administrator who believes that we are in a state of emergency no longer can call the council together to approve that expenditure before he makes that determination or they make that determination, and then they report it to council. I think that's an important distinction because sole discretion lies with that staff. And I'm not aware of this having been an issue before, that council couldn't be called together quickly to address a state of emergency. So I don't know if we're trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist. I question that. And I also believe that there should be some checks and balances, that there should not be just one person that decides and then procures. I have other comments about the language of the policy in the resolution, but I don't know that I need to raise it now, depending on how the ordinance goes.
All right, Mr. Perry, any?
I don't know
Yeah.
about emergency. I would think that we would want to have the ability to do that.
Well, we saw that obviously, when we come together in a state of emergency like Ian,
Right.
You know, it does put a lot more powers in the mayor's seat, that if we had to get generators, if we had to get things of that nature to operate things, that would be what that's how I read it, is that type of situation, that if we can't come together because we're down south, we've got to get things operating for the protection of our citizens. I don't think it's just a random, it's a state of emergency. That's the state does it. A lot of times the federal government does, state does it, and then we do it.
If I could give an
And that's true. The exact language is that the city administrator may declare the existence of an emergency procurement condition and then suspend competitive bidding and then report to the council. The previous language had the head of any department who believed or maintained that there was a state of emergency, they would actually go to the council to suspend competitive bidding.
And I'd like to take that one on, because I got a perfect example for you.
Go for it.
So when Pump Station 8 went out, which is on the left side of the marina, if you're looking at the marina, what happened basically was raw sewer water basically began to go into the marina, smell. I have video of it going into the street, basically, from the manhole itself. It would come up and the like. It was a unique situation. We didn't have generators to basically put pumps in there to evacuate that kind of flow. I don't know what the volume was, probably in the hundreds, maybe 100,000 gallons a day. It was pretty significant. So what ended up happening was Pier 22, the marina itself, had a generator. And I said, you have a generator? And the first thing I thought of was like this Home Depot generator. They go, we got a 140,000 watt generator that they had bought from the city of Dunedin. It's on a trailer. That's how big it is. I talked with Jim and his folks. I said, it's a real generator. Can you check it out and see if it's legit? Because I didn't want the Home Depot version. That wouldn't help for what we had to run. He said, it's a real generator. Within 6 hours, we had that generator on an agreement that I made with Pier 22 to pay them the FEMA reimbursement rate, whatever that would be, because we were figuring this was within the confines of a FEMA incident. If I had to go back to council, I would have had to bring everybody back on that, what was it, Friday, right after the storm? Might have even been the Thursday. I think I was starting to talk about it on Thursday. But we were able to put that generator in service within about probably 2 or 3 hours after we got it there. We had to bring our people out and do a little bit of electrical changes for the connectors and the like to the pump station. But that's a perfect example of something that isn't really workable under emergency conditions. The lawyers and the folks that don't have to deal with that, the procurement, sure. But at the end of the day, there are certain conditions and contingencies that we have to have the flexibility to do.
And we also had a chance, at one point I had got a call that there was some fuel out there that, you know, if we weren't sure if we were going to be able to get fuel for a long time, and it was a call that, you know, if we had to go through the council part of it, we needed it, you know, and no matter what, even if we got it, and it was actually less than what the going rate was, because the bank didn't end up needing it. But if it would have been where we had to wait, we couldn't have got it. And if we couldn't have then got fuel, we'd have been in trouble. But the benefit to the fuel was, even if we got it and we didn't use it for the hurricane planning, we would still use it for future. So it was those type things. And
we locked that fuel in at a pre-hurricane price,
right, yeah,
when it had gone up considerably. That's the kind of thing that, you know, if we want to go with that, that's fine. But understand, because really, how often is this going to happen? Maybe, I mean, you don't know with hurricanes, right? It could be 3 in 2 years, 3 in a year. It might not be any for 4 years and everything. But when you need it, you need it. And the reality is that to say, well, we need this extra level of oversight that's somewhat kind of cumbersome on a true emergency that doesn't occur very often. That's the policy decision you all have to make. Either way, you know, we're going to do what we have to do. But when you say, well, how come you didn't do something about it? I'm going to say,
health, welfare, and safety.
I couldn't.
I hear what you're saying completely, and I appreciate your work. And that's the hard thing, is that, you know, this is not saying that I wouldn't trust Mr. Perry or Ms. Forsyth to make that determination, but times change, people change. You know, we won't always have Mr. Perry. And also that speaks to our level of commitment as a public servant. You know, you two drove by my house the Friday after Ian. As an elected official, I would expect that if you gave me a call, I would absolutely have to get up and get over here and take care of it.
But you look down south, a lot of us wouldn't be able to do that, or they would have left, you know, a lot of people left. And again, when we go to the state of the emergency, we have to vote on that, and that does then put more powers in the mayor's seat at that moment as the elected official working with the staff, you know, and that's how it's set up now. And I just think that, I agree with you, if something started going south, obviously, then the council would have every right to look forward on that, too.
Even if the language just was changed, because, you know, for hurricanes are probably our number one concern, even if the council convened at the onset, even if the language was just changed to say, council declares the emergency, and then staff has full discretion to procure as they see fit, that would make me feel better. It's the language as written gives one person the authority to declare the emergency and then do the procurement. That's the way I read it.
Ms. Coachman?
Thank you. I hear all your points and agree. But I appreciate the scenario you just presented to Mr. Perry, because it helped me understand an emergency other than, you know, us having a formal declare of an emergency. So it has me thinking a little differently. Going up to 75 is a lot. But in consideration of inflation all these years, it's somewhat within the range, I feel. But it is giving you a lot of power, so that means we have to trust. And hopefully the fact that we have you here means that we can trust you in this fortune.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll start the vote to approve Ordinance 3097 in Ward 5.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
4.
No.
Carries 3-1. Thank you. Mr. Perry?
The
Sister, the child?
Yeah, the child, I believe, is what I refer to it as, which are the thresholds. I think it was pretty well explained.
All right. Chair will entertain a motion to approve Resolution 23-3.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second by Ms. Coachman. Any discussion?
I just
Ms.
have
Moore?
one. I just have
Yeah,
one.
no, you're fine.
I lost my pagination, but as I said earlier, the categories I think are in line with the increased cost of goods and services. I am happy to have the language that says that the procurements may not be divided to meet certain monetary thresholds. I think that was a smart addition. The only question that I raise is for everyone to consider whether or not the good faith review of available sources regarding, I believe this is under D2, then a bulleted item, and then a companion under 4 bulleted item. The language is after a good faith review. That again is also discretionary, and so I would just suggest that we make that a little firmer, such as a time period, instead of saying good faith review after a 2-week period, so that there's a definitive window that after that point, the purchasing manager can go ahead and do the notice of intent to award. I can show you.
Mr. Perry?
Let me just take a quick look at it.
Sure.
What section is it in?
I believe it's D2, Category 2 purchases.
What page?
I'm
D,
struggling with
original.
pagination, yes.
Page 8, I believe.
I don't actually see a page.
Bottom of page 7, top of page 8.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Oh, actually, it is. It is under procedures. Procedures, A, bulleted item, number 5.
Purchasing policy and procedures?
Yes.
Okay, that's page 7, and then you go down to the bottom of page 7, category 2.
This language is under Yes. Procedures. A, the fifth bulleted item. Then D, 2. I believe this is the third bulleted item. And, I'm sorry, wait, no, yes, A, and I was struggling without the page numbers, so I apologize for that.
Mr. Mayor, perhaps it would be helpful to know what our current how it has operated.
And to clarify, this is regarding when we're going to suspend or award something that has been bid out, but only one potential person.
It's actually
responded.
under Category 2 purchases that are between $10,000 and $25,000. Is that correct? And then the subsections below it?
Yes.
Two written price quotations are required. The documentation may be found in any source from which a hard copy can be retained. Price lists, advertisements, internet, original email communications, other documentations acceptable to the city administrator. Then it says a separate bullet point, after conducting a good faith review of available sources, it is determined that there is only one available source, or the purchase is based on a piggyback. So what it's asking to do is someone, the city administrator I'm presuming, to conduct a good faith review of available sources and make a determination pursuant to whether it's a sole source, only one available source, that's called the sole source, and then secondly, a piggyback, and then it gives examples under it. I don't know what kind of language other than good faith review we could suggest to put in there. And you're right that it does give somewhat plenary authority to conduct the review, but it is what it is. Somebody's got to conduct the review.
Well, as a point.
Oh, excuse me.
This is just I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Kramer?
Thank you, sir. Based on the chart back above, like right under D, in Category 2, it actually shows department director or designee, so it wouldn't even technically reach.
But he would be overseeing it if there was a question
Sure.
from
But
the
that's- I mean, that-
department director, which the council hires the administrator and hires the department director, so if we come up with an issue, obviously, it would be addressed.
This was, and specifically, it's not necessarily the purchasing aspect of it, but it is the award of a bid suspending competitive bidding to give an award to one vendor because only one vendor has responded to the request to bid.
Or as in the.
Or it's a piggyback.
It's a piggyback, right.
So my only issue was if we are giving the award, the piggyback I'm not as concerned about, but if we're giving an award to one person because they're the only bidder, it makes sense to me that we would have a definitive, this I think protects the department head or the city administrator, whoever's making this decision, because you can never turn around and say, well, your good faith review was this.
Your cousin.
Right, it's 2 weeks, and when that is over, we do the intent to award, and to me, that's just cleaner, safer, clearer. That is just my suggestion. It's not a cross or a sword I need to fall on.
Here's the problem. If you take piggyback out, you're just dealing with sole source. IP, intellectual property, is proprietary in a lot of cases. And so guys like Mike T that have to buy computer systems and the like, you have what?
Yeah, Corey, Ms. Fortner, you can come
Please.
forward, help out here.
So this is under a threshold that wouldn't go out to bid.
Right,
first
of
all.
course, to start with.
And second of all, in the ordinance, there is a language put in there that we're putting in there now, specifically relative to sole source procurements, and that we have to put it on our website for 7 days. So if anyone
Right.
has.
The notice of intent to award,
Exactly.
yes.
So that people, if they disagree that it is an actual sole source, they can come back and say,
Right, which goes to my point, particularly in IP. What ends up happening is it's proprietary software and things like that. And then other vendors say, oh, no, you can get a migration system and you can take that proprietary and make it unproprietary and the like, which maybe theoretically you can do. But somebody has to make a good faith attempt, determination about whether it is truly a sole source. whether there's only one vendor that can make it. The way that I see it come up the most is in this tension of the world of intellectual property law and the like, where it's like, well, we're with Acela. Oh, I guess a good example is Munis. We're with Munis, and Munis has only certain things that you can use Munis systems for. If you go talk to other people in the enterprise world, they'll go, oh no, we can use some of that Munis. And theoretically, maybe they can, but it doesn't work very effectively. And so that's where you've got to get the program determination from people like Mike T to go, yeah, it is out there and it can migrate, but it's so cumbersome, wonky, things like that. And so is it really a sole source? I'm not an IT person. I always would, in that case, would go to IT people and say, is it truly a proprietary sole source type of thing? Or is there some other way to do it with another vendor? Theoretically, sometimes there is. From a practical and economical perspective, it doesn't make very good determination. I would think that I'm experienced enough, have a little background in law, procurement, and the like, that I could justify that to you. And this is a procurement of $25,000 or less. I would respectfully submit that I need that authority, or someone does, to make that determination.
I don't necessarily disagree. I thought it was worth noting that, in my mind, that it helps protect the person making the determination as well. So as I said, it's not a sword that I felt like I needed to die on. I'll just note too, before we vote, that emergency purchases has the same language that I objected to in the ordinance. But but the thresholds are important at this point, given that we passed the ordinance.
All right, thank you. Seeing no further discussion, we'll start the vote in Ward 2.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. All right, moving on to Section 8. New business by department head, city attorney, and council. We have a hard stop at 11 o'clock today to go to another event, and if we don't get finished, we'll come back after lunch. So as we go forward, we'll start with A, Community Redevelopment Agency.
Good morning again. Katerina Gerakio-Siren, CRA Executive Director, and I have with me Jean G. Farmer, our Public Art Coordinator. We're before you to request support to apply for the mayor, to apply in conjunction with the mayor for the Bloomberg Philanthropies Public Art Challenge. This challenge invites the mayors from U.S. cities to apply for up to $1 million in funding to create temporary public art projects that address important civic issues. This was brought to our attention about a month ago as an opportunity, and since then we've been working diligently to see if this is viable. We have met with the mayor twice. He has expressed his support. But we wanted to also bring it to the city council's attention. I will pass on to Ms. Farmer to give you a little bit more information about what civic issue we would like to be addressing, as well as the support that we've received from the community.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the civic issue that we want to address in this public art challenge is reading readiness, and there's several reasons why, but what's cool about this public art challenge is that public art can take a difficult issue and bring it to light in a way that people can understand. So we're going to do this through the arts. And so the submissions that we do, they're going to be across all kinds of disciplines of art. And
Mr. Mayor, I apologize, Ms. Farmer. I believe your paperwork is bringing up PowerPoints. There, thank you. That's okay.
Got your keyboard.
Okay, so we're going to be doing all types of disciplines of art. And we have with us this morning the Manatee County Schools, Jeremiah Bowman, and Luann Howe and Angela Napick. And so those are three people that we'd like to come up and or Jeremiah, to just kind of give you a little overview of what they're thinking about in this.
And you did it again.
Welcome.
Thank you all. I'm excited to be here.
Name your name for us.
Jeremiah Bowman. I'm a specialist for the visual and performing arts with the School District of Manatee County, and we're very excited to keep working on this partnership with the city. This began with Ms. Farmer reaching out and having a student from Manatee High School join your Public Art Advisory Board, which we were very excited, and that kind of turned into a much larger discussion about how can the school district and the city partner to not only promote student art and music, but also help improve literacy, which is a really important issue for our school board and for our community. And so then that turned into a discussion of how can we partner. And so we have some great ideas that we're excited to work on and that we hope that this grant will help fund. Regardless of whether the grant is successful, we're still going to keep partnering and working on projects, which we hope includes banners featuring student artwork, a festival which has arts and literacy combined, and we're hoping that this really turns into an exciting partnership which hopefully becomes an example which can be duplicated, or I say replicated, across the county and other cities. So thank you for your leadership and for Mayor Brown for being supportive of this project, and we're excited to continue this partnership.
And I think from my standpoint, when we met a couple times, we had some good meetings, and I hope I asked a lot of good questions, so it's something to get involved. But when you really think about it, with the city elementary schools being all Title I schools basically, anything we can do to energize the younger kids to have more opportunity to read, and if it's through art, then it just gives them that next step. And we saw through COVID that our schools in the city dropped more at the third grade reading level than any other schools in the county. So it's important to do everything we can, and I appreciate you guys bringing it through the opportunity, through the mayor's initiative, so thank you.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, so we are, as the visual and performing arts person, we did partner with our early learning team, and so that's where we have Angela and Luann are here, and then we also, I believe you're going to hear from Dr. Halpin, who's our Director of Early Learning, later today, right? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So just to name some of the collaborators that are going to be working with us are the Manatee County Schools. We're going to have Soarin' 4 and the Lean on Me Project, Sarasota, Bradenton. The Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, Art Center Manatee, the Manatee County Utilities Department, Recess Education, Manatee Community Foundation, Realize Bradenton, the elementary schools, churches, and individuals that are all excited about working on this project.
Thank you.
So what we're here to ask from you is to support this application. The importance of coming before City Council is that the concern that the Bloomberg Philanthropies has is that if there's a change in mayor, then the project will not fall through and that it will continue to have support with the city of Bradenton. So by coming before you, we would like to get that motion of support so that we can proceed with the application. But as Mr. Bauman said, I think this is the first step. Whether we get this or not, and the competition is going to be very high with large cities that have been prepping for this for years. But I think the momentum in the community, every meeting I go, somebody comes up that heard about this potential and would like to partner with us. So if we are not successful in this application round, we would still like to come back and maybe make a proposal on how to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or a motion?
Well,
Ms. Coachman?
I just wanted to make a statement. My other day job is working at an arts magnet middle school, and I know firsthand the importance of bringing the arts into academics. Makes a big difference, especially in a Title I school.
So is that a motion?
That's a motion.
To approve?
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Ms. Coachman. Any other comments, Mr. Kramer?
Yes. The application's due February 15th. Are you all on schedule to have that done within?
It will be submitted. We're working very diligently. We've already started. We're getting our partners together, budget and everything to submit it. Yes.
Okay. Chop, chop.
I'll just, if I may.
We can work.
Okay. Great, thank you.
I think this is great collaboration. I know we've talked a little bit about the timeline being tight, the first attempt. I also know that you all have, limited resources, so I want to encourage, if this is the first step in something like this, that my understanding, which is extremely limited about these type of programs, are that they can be extremely labor intensive. So I think that partnering with Art Center, Realize Bradenton is going to be crucial, because what I would hate to see is Miss Siren and Mr. Chris Munyon. I'd hate to see their focus on the economic side of the CRA's goals be dwarfed, to be swallowed up by something of this magnitude. But I love the collaboration with all of the art nonprofits, and we'll see what happens.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second to collaborate to keep this going forward to approval by the council. So we'll start the vote in Ward 3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
1. 2.
Yes.
I knew I was going to do that at some point.
Thank you.
Carries 4-0. Thank you. Planning and Community Development. Next on the list.
Good morning, Robin Singer with Planning Community Development. Volker Reese is also here to address this issue. We've been trying to find a way to deal with houses that have exterior hoarding. Oftentimes they are homesteaded, so we can't pursue foreclosure on those properties. There are occasions where we have helped them to achieve a cleanup, only to have it reoccur. So we had some discussion with the city attorney on how to proceed with these, and I believe, bringing suit against the properties and the owners to enact, just going through the normal code enforcement process, they'll accrue fines exceeding the $75,000 or up to the $75,000, and it doesn't really seem to have an effect. Bringing them in front of the special magistrate doesn't seem to have an effect. So bringing suit against the property owners would seem to be a more expeditious way and hopefully more long-lasting way of cleaning up these homes. We anticipate there's probably only about 3 or 4 of them, but they may reoccur. You may have other ones popping up. So what we're asking for is that the city administrator be given the authorization for us to pursue those suits through the city attorney's office. Otherwise, we can't just do that on our own, and rather than bringing people up in front of city council for these individual homes, we're not looking to embarrass anybody or making a public process out of it. Other than that, we just want to get the homes cleaned up so that the neighboring property owners don't have to suffer through it. So I guess we're just looking for an authorization from city council.
Any questions from Robin, Ms. Singer? I'm sorry. And I think that what's brought some of this up is, like you said, Village of the Arts by the Met. There's a property that has really started getting a lot more attention. And again, we don't, as a city, in my opinion, don't want to become, as a word has said before, the Gestapo to a point. But this is beyond that. This is where we've tried to help them numerous times. And, hopefully the next step might not even all get all the way, but it may then tell them how serious we are that you need to clean your property up. Because if this was next to any of our houses, you'd be singing all the time. So, Ms. Barnaby?
Yes, I know of a couple of properties in Ward 2 that I have shared with Mr. Volker because of the care premise issue. And it is a very difficult issue to deal with. I don't think that the neighbors understand how difficult it is. It's like, just get them to clean it up. Well, we've been trying. And whatever we have done has not penetrated the gray matter that we're serious and it needs to be done. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. I appreciate that we're going to have another step that we can go say to our citizens, we are trying to protect you, we are trying to protect your properties, and we're doing this now. We've done this, now we're doing this.
Thank you. Ms. Coachman?
Thank you. I agree with Mrs. Barnaby. In Ward 5, there are several spots. So unfortunately, this is probably the best move we could make to make a difference.
Right, and I think that's very important to understand that this isn't the first step. We've gone through the first steps, second steps, third steps, fourth steps, and, this council did years ago, set the $75,000 cap because it had started going to where it was 150, 200. It wasn't working, so we said, let's cap it so we could, again, compliance, not punishment, but sometimes you have to have the tools in your tool belt to get those accomplished. So I guess, so you're asking for a motion to
Yes.
to proceed,
Mhm.
okay, with the exterior hoarding properties?
Mhm. Yes.
Is there a motion to give the authority for planning to make that, and then it would be through the city attorney, through the administrator's office?
Motion.
So moved, okay, by Ms.
Second.
Coachman, second by Mr. Kramer. Had discussion, start the vote in Ward 4.
The vote, yes, that's fine.
Yes, 5,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3.
Yes.
Carries 4-0. Thank you very much, Ms. Singer, thank you. Okay, Public Works and Utilities.
Good morning, Jim McClellan, Director of Public Works and Utilities. What you have before you is associated with a supplemental environmental project that is an agreed upon requirement of our settlement of the lawsuit with the water keepers to provide a project that enhances the water quality of the general Tampa Bay region. And in discussion with the groups, we arrived at the idea that as part of the existing Riverwalk, we had done a very small segment of oyster habitat revitalization. Let me just pull up so you can kind of see. Okay, so the area along the Riverwalk where we did a oyster rehabilitation is the area between 14th Street East and the dock that was replaced at that area. So in that small little area, we did about 200 lineal feet of oyster bed rehabilitation by installing oyster shells as a means to try to enhance oysters to rehabilitate the area. Oysters are a natural filter for improving water quality. So as part of what we're proposing to do, because it's along the Riverwalk as well, we would be proposing to, what you have before you is to permit additional oyster bed rehabilitation in the river between where we left off at the dock, all the way over to the peninsula where Caddy's is located. And what we've got is an agreement with Manatee County that we're going to permit more than we can, or more than we're obligated to install. So the overall project cost has to be $220,000, including the permitting and design cost that this represents. And we will permit this full area, and we will install what we can afford under the remainder of the project that's required. But by permitting the entire area, it sets it up so that Manatee County can come in and on their efforts continue and build upon what we're going to be able to accomplish. And so you can see that it represents a very significant increase in the amount of area where we're proposing to have oyster rehabilitations.
We're trying to put oyster rehabilitation in the Oyster River.
In the Oyster River, yes.
Bring it back what it was named as. And I think also there's other environmental groups that if there's areas and opportunities, they would be willing to help too, whether it be Sarasota Bay, Tampa Bay,
Correct.
And also other, not-for-profit groups out there. And that would show truly our desire to really do what's right and try to work within it. And, and it's, some of it is just timing from the past, but now we're trying to bring some of that back as from everything I've seen. So,
and to be clear, this project is, this is listed as an amendment to the agreement for the Riverwalk. It will be completely funded separately from anything associated with the Riverwalk. It is money coming out of the revenues from the Water Sewer Fund in order to pay for the project. It will be invoiced separately so that it can all be monitored and tracked properly.
Questions?
Mayor, if I could just be heard real briefly, the whole oyster restoration movement is one of this kind of evolving sciences that's getting a lot of attention and support from the biology and the chemistry community that's dealing with marine science. The oyster restoration itself creates the byproducts that will generate further seagrass, which of course is the feeding for manatees on the Manatee River, both on the eastern side of Florida as well as on the western side of Florida, particularly in the southwest. There's obviously major endangered habitat in manatee populations and the like. So we think it's a pretty good direction for us to participate in. It was required, as Mr. McClellan has pointed out, as a SEP. It's called the Supplemental Environmental Project by the Waterkeepers lawsuit. It was either pay them money or do something for the community and the environment. And we thought council, and I think we've talked about that before, but the whole oyster restoration, it really is a rapidly evolving thing that the state is trying to do, the federal government and local communities to deal with. And they say it may have, although from what I can determine, and I'm not a scientist, it may have a beneficial impact on red tide as well.
And I think that's something that, we're going to see more of, people coming to us and wanting to do more projects, not just in this zone, if it can be done. And I really think that, we've talked about this for a while. When I was on Sarasota Bay Estuary, we were talking about even them doing something there. So this starts that process, even though it's kind of twisted behind our back, but we had to. But it's still, I'd rather use the money for that than just give it.
Yeah, and it's the right thing to do as well.
Yeah, too.
Just
Questions?
quick- just
Yes,
real
ma'am.
quick.
Ms. Moore?
In your, in the thing there, it looked like there were a couple of private residential properties that also had docks within the, and I've learned a little bit about this from the Sarasota Estuary people, and I think it's a fantastic idea. I just want to clarify that I'm assuming that it's not going to affect their ability to use their docks or anything to that effect.
No, in dealing with the environmental group that's doing the permitting for us, the actual zone for where this is going to be installed it's not right up against the seawall. It will be out in the channel some, so it should have minimal impact.
Great, thank you.
So we would need a motion to go forward with this?
Yes.
I will make that motion.
Okay, a motion to approve Public Works going forward with the,
Second.
okay, by Mrs. Moore and second by Ms. Coachman. Any other discussion? Start the vote in Ward 5.
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Perry?
Mayor, Council, briefly on item D, which is a recommendation of pre-construction services with HJ High Construction, and specifically for pre-construction services proposal that should be contained in your package. The short version on this particular item is that we would like to bring HJ High on board as a continuing services contractor. Jim, are they currently on HJ High as a continuing services contractor, or is
The contract has yet to be finalized. We're in the final processes of the language associated with it. We've sent the contracts to all of the firms. We've asked for their input and feedback as questions. We have those list of questions. We're in the process of incorporating those to finalize them. And what we would end up doing is bringing that back before council at the next meeting to have those finalized.
right? And this is to get HJ High on board for this project a little quicker. Is that what we're doing here?
Correct.
Okay. So let me tell you what this project is then, and why it's important, is that we will be having a workshop next week that I will submit various locations for City Hall, where City Hall could move to. Of course, we have 14th Street. We own the property at 6th and 1st. We've had some discussions about some nearby property that's fairly small. It would require acquisition. It's surface parking currently and the like. And then some other properties in the LECOM corridor without getting into that proposal. Additionally, as the council may remember, there was a consideration of the Bradenton Herald building as an alternate site. Well, in order to evaluate these properties that have buildings on them, because that's a remodel, that would be a remodel job, we have a space study that looks at needs. We have obtained some information on the structure itself, the Bradenton Herald building, which was preliminary, but we would have to do a couple of things in order to see if it's viable. And that is, we'd have to evaluate basically the structural integrity of the building, the schematic and programmatic layout, whether it would meet our needs as a city hall, the mechanical HVAC systems, electrical, and the like, in order to give you all an idea of the price. Both, can it meet, is it a viable alternative for a remodel for City Hall? And if it is, how much would it cost? Those two pieces is what we're looking for. HJ High is a contractor, I think they're out of Orlando, that has done some government buildings around here. I think the most recent one was Palmetto PD, is that right? And they had been working with Jim, and we have certain degree of confidence because they gave us a proposal that they can do that in rather short order. So the proposal is, I think, a $24,000 proposal to do that evaluation. I don't think you can evaluate the viability of that site until you know from some expertise that it actually, from a physical plan perspective, is doable for remodel, and then from a financial perspective, how much it would cost. And so we're at the point where, you know, we're dealing with proposals for this particular facility and mixed use on this and the disposition of this. But of course, the 800-pound gorilla, or whatever it may be, is where do we go? And so that's all a policy decision at both levels that I am trying to keep the administration, as the administration, using sophistication to give you the information you need to make that decision. If the decision is, you know, nothing at all, no problem. We got plenty of work to do upstairs and around the city and the like. If the but I think it's incumbent upon us to give you informed information to make decisions on. And that site seems to be a viable site that could economically be done at a similar cost of new construction in an alternative location. There's drawbacks, and we're going to talk about these. I have my staff preparing a pretty good presentation that talks about the pros and the cons, and that's all a decision that you all make.
Decision we'll make. This will be just having the availability if we decide to do it.
That's correct. Right. I don't think you can really make, I mean, maybe you can make the decision without that information, but I think you'd probably want to know what the alternative is, the cost associated with it, and what
other options.
Other issues regarding, does it work well for us? What's the condition of the building? What would the improvements have to do? What else could you use green space there? Using the parking garage. That's the benefit of that site. And we'll talk about some of the other benefits, but we already have parking.
So you just need a motion to recommend.
It's a $24,000 expenditure.
Recommending that this council.
I'm sorry, $24.95, I believe, or something along those lines.
All right. Any questions, or is there a motion?
I'm going to have a question after we make the motion.
All right. Is there a motion by anybody?
So moved.
All right. So motion by Mr. Kramer, second. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Pardon me, Ms. Moore.
I think it's worth noting, in the interest of transparency, that this site was included in one of the original unsolicited bids. I guess my questions are, why don't we have these type of proposals for the other properties that we're considering that we're going to discuss in the workshop? And that said, I think we have enough information about this site that we can have a knowledgeable conversation at the workshop next week before we do this expenditure. I agree it's not a huge expenditure, and I agree that if we were going to move forward with, even if we just, let's say we narrow the pool down to 2, at that time, this is a reasonable thing to do, and it's something that we actually should do. It's good due diligence. I reviewed the proposal, and I don't have any issue with it. But my comment is, if this is something that we feel is important for this site, we should be doing it for all the sites, and I don't think it's necessary to do before the workshop.
And if I could just address that as, the other sites are all raw land, basically. They're not existing buildings that need to be remodeled. And so you have to consider that when you look at a remodel job, whether it's a house or anything else, you don't have a blank canvas. As it relates to those other sites, we do have some reasonable cost estimates. We have some architecture and engineering that is very close and the like. I don't know what the timeline is, and I understand that as an option to make a determination, but it seems to me that when we put those 5 graphs and visuals of those other sites up, you're not going to see a building in any of them. You're going to see raw land. Raw land is actually easier to determine construction costs at one hand than it is what's behind the drywall. And so we need to get a jump on evaluating what's behind the drywall. It's an existing 25-year-old building and the like. And so I have no problem doing it after we do the
We're
workshop.
not spending any money until after next Thursday. You just wanted to have them on board.
And that's correct.
Right. We're
Yeah.
not doing.
That's probably the most important thing. If you, yeah.
No, don't do it. It's just we wanted to have them ready to go
Go. Yeah.
if the council decides to consider that site.
That's a good point. And you have my word that I won't sign the contract till after next Thursday.
Yeah, this is just, because this is a meeting to say, if we know that it's a viable site, then, yeah, we're ready to go. Otherwise, it's just null and void.
Okay, then I would just add that maybe we should amend the motion to say that this contract is contingent upon this site being determined at our workshop.
I have no problem with that.
Yes.
Excellent idea.
Thank you.
Yep.
So does the motioner accept the amendment?
Fully accept
Yep.
Councilwoman Moore's amendment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the only thing I would note is that this is going to be a workshop, isn't it? For
Right,
next
but
Thursday?
At least then we'll be ready to go next.
Right, but I mean, there won't be any official action taken by the council, so you would not have a decision made. I mean, you can have consensus of the council, but again, you have to,
Still having this in order was a good thing for the next meeting to go with it. Approve it.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is there'll still be some discretion there at the staff level to have to understand what the council is
So would the
directing.
timeline, would it be safe to say that we make this friendly amendment, then we have our workshop, we have consensus, at the next meeting, we discuss, well, whenever the next time it comes on the agenda, we talk about the selection of a site, and when staff has a vote, they then know that they can go ahead and execute this proposal? If in fact that is the selection, is that what you're saying?
Right, I'm suggesting there won't be an opportunity next Thursday to take formal action to say we want to move forward with this site, so I don't know how, I don't know how staff would address that if it was left open that way in the motion, other than, as you say, waiting until the next regular meeting to take action on it. So, I don't know if that's something that, from a timing standpoint, I don't know where staff is on moving forward with that. Would it be feasible to get that determination at the next regular meeting?
I think I'd have to see what it's interesting with workshops. Let's get back to the whole thing. You can't vote on it, and it's informative, but it's informative to the administration too. The administration needs direction from its policymakers. And to a certain extent, I understand the rules regarding the restrictions on votes of workshops and the like, but if there was a general consensus to move in that direction, I would think that is a tacit signal.
Right, and I'm fine with that as long as everyone understands that would be how the administrator would be operating under that he would get a consensus
Yeah, no,
from
we're not saying that it's a yes.
Right.
There, so, all right. So we've had discussion. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 2.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Carries 4-0. All right. Public Works and Utility Resolution.
Mayor, I know we have short on time because we have 11 o'clock hard stop.
Right.
I don't know how hard that is. The next matter is probably going to take about 15 minutes.
Let's push through, and then let's try to get done in
15 minutes, okay. I'm going to get up there with Jim and
So let's let Mrs. Melton read it. You
oh,
want
I'm sorry.
to read the resolution?
Resolution 23-14, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bradenton, Florida, adopting the 2023 City Wastewater Master Facilities Plan, making findings, authorizing the submittal for the city's Florida Department of Environmental Protection State Revolving Fund Loan Request for project number CW-4103A, and the 2023 City Wastewater Master Facilities Plan, designating the city's authorized representative, authorizing the execution of applicable loan agreement and related documents, providing for the establishment of pledged revenues for the repayment of the loan, providing for assurances of compliance with loan program requirements, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Perry?
It's on.
Is it on? Don't know. Whoa.
Good afternoon, good morning. Jim McClellan, Director of Public Works and Utilities. This is really setting the stage for us to be able to seek financing through the state revolving fund for a variety of projects associated with our wastewater system. We've been working with Jones Edmonds for, well, basically since 1949 when they were Smith and Gillespie, and we've been working with them. So they're intimately familiar with our wastewater system. And historically, whenever we go to the state revolving fund in order to obtain loan agreements with them for work on the wastewater system, we update our wastewater facilities plan to include specific projects that we would potentially have the need to have a loan for. I believe the last time the facilities plan was updated was probably around 2017 when we got loans associated with some of the work that was done to improve the aeration system at the wastewater plant. So we worked with them to update the facilities plan, and included in that, got a little presentation. Let me get back. I don't want this. So.
Accept.
Accept. Okay. Okay. So the purpose of the resolution is to adopt formally the wastewater master facilities plan and to authorize us to seek application with the SRF program for a potential loan. Why would we go to FRS? First and foremost, it has low interest rates. They're as low as you typically can find anywhere. It's also a relatively easy process to obtain those loans. What's also really beneficial about them is there are no loan repayments associated with the loan until the actual construction of a project is complete and the final cost is established. So you're setting the stage essentially to go for money when you need it, when a project is ready to be built, and the financing for the project effectively serves as a line of credit for us. That we are able to go to them and say, we want to do this project. They establish a loan agreement associated with it. The final values of the loan agreement are not established until the construction is complete. So, for instance, if a project has a 2-year construction schedule, loan repayment on it doesn't get established until after that 2-year time frame. There are 4 specific projects that were included in the master facilities plan update. All of these are projects that have been in the works for quite a while. One is a wastewater treatment plant wet weather clarifier number 4, standby power pumps or generators at 12 lift stations throughout the city, lining of wastewater gravity sewers and manholes throughout the city, and wastewater treatment plant injection well. The wastewater injection well is a project that has been ongoing for a number of years, and it's associated with the fact that there's now a House bill that says we as a city who have a discharge into the Manatee River have to have that discharge to the river cease by 2032. So our goal for this was to put water into an injection well at the wastewater treatment plant. When we first conceived this project, we submitted for cooperative funding through SwiftMud because it was going to form, our water was going to form a freshwater barrier underground to be part of a regional freshwater barrier to prevent saltwater intrusion into the aquifer system in the area. We got funding through SwiftMud. We took it through 30% design. The 30% design then had to go through a 30% design peer review and an evaluation by the Water Management District. The result of that was that they did not believe that the project had the full level of environmental benefit that they were looking for in a project, that we couldn't guarantee it because of how much intermittent flow there may be at the plant. So after the 30% design was complete, they withdrew their funding for us, and so we've been funding it ourselves through our water and sewer funds. Part of that wet weather, that injection well was that we established that one of the things that we were going to need at the plant was a clarifier to help improve how much water we could put through and basically maximize how much would be available to go down the well. Ultimately, the wet weather clarifier and the lining of the sewer pipes and the standby power generators ended up being part of the negotiated consent decree with the waterkeepers lawsuit. The injection well is not part of that. It's just kind of interrelated because of its connection to the wet weather clarifier. So those are the four main projects that are included. The facility plan, projected costs for all of those things, we've tried to be as conservative as possible, or as liberal as possible, I guess, to say all of these projects, the clarifier, we put it out for bid. We had an engineer's estimate that was about 10.5 million. We put it out to bid, and kind of going back to the whole procurement process, we ended up with one bid. Came in at 15-point-something million, which we found out was a little iffy in terms of how it all transpired. But we're carrying that number with a contingency on top of it in terms of what we might ultimately have to pay for this. Same for all of the other projects. This is the worst case scenario. Ultimately, we're not looking to ask for this much money. So for instance, emergency power, we have several lift stations that we're going to be installing standby power and or bypass pumps at this year with the money that we already have available. We're still carrying those costs in here, again, as that worst case scenario. The lining of the sewer pipes, again, we have submitted legislative appropriation request to the Florida Senate and to the House related to the emergency power project and the pipelining project, which represents between the two of them about $1.5 million that we're asking for there. And we've also set them up as that we would come back and ask for an additional year on top of those. So again, these numbers represent a worst case scenario. We hope to be nowhere near any of these numbers. And for instance, we also still have an operating budget established for the injection well right now. I think that the last time I looked had about $3 million in it. So again, worst case scenario, we're telling the SRF, this is what the overall project cost could be, but we don't expect to be in these levels. And again, projects are not new. The injection well, we started work on it in 2017. Through that process, the clarifier number 4, we ended up starting working on the design associated with it in 2021. Lift station emergency power, we've already done a few. So that started in 2021. And the manhole sewer lining, again, it's part of the consent decree with the water keepers, but we've been doing it since 2012. It's just getting accelerated as part of this decree. So, should council approve the resolution, the next step is that we would submit paperwork to the SRF for them to review, including design documents associated with the clarifier. Upon their review, city application for a 20 loan is considered at their next quarterly meeting. Anything associated with that would come back to council for approval for signature and authorization. And in the meantime, we're going to continue to scour the earth looking for additional funding sources, including the legislative appropriations and other grant opportunities.
So I think the most important question is, how does this loan get paid back no matter what we end up borrowing?
And I'm gonna hit that one. Can I jump in?
Sure.
Jim's done a good job. The short version is we operate a utility, and that utility charges for 3 revenue sources, basically, as it relates to potable water, the stuff we drink.
Please stand at the microphone.
Thank you. bathe with, wash our dishes with, and the like, the clean water that comes in. The second one is sanitary sewer. That's the discharge of the water, and ultimately the stormwater as well. That utility, I'm going to show you some documents, and I want to throw out a compliment to Jim and his staff for really looking forward, because this is probably a 25-year plan when you look at what it will do. That sewer lining project, the life expectancy on that product is, what, 50 years? And the like. We can't tear up roads. That's a lot more costly than lining it. That's the technology. Right now, the technology has a 50-year life expectancy. And obviously water treatment being the clarifier. We have a water plant. What the problem is that when it gets full because of inflow and infiltration and heavy wet rains, the screens and filters get caught. We have to shut down the entire plant to clean the screens and grills and filters. And during that time, when water is coming into our system, both from natural sanitary sewer that's being used as well as inflow and infiltration from the rains, we basically have to discharge it into the river. That's how we got into trouble. We exceeded our DEP permit and the like. So, Jim's done a good job with getting with Jones and Edmonds Engineering. You guys have a lot to talk about and read at night and things like that. I like underground utility operations. If you look at this report, it really breaks it out into those categories about transmission systems, water treatment, and injection technologies in the longer term. Take just a look at the table of contents, and you'll see that this is hard engineering. Volumes, flows, quantities, all that stuff that engineers like to figure out. But I didn't go to engineering school. I know a little bit about finance because I did a little bit of that work. This is the application for these 4 projects. Jim talked about this is just an application. It would all have to come back to you. The application asks for capital cost of $48 million. It includes a loan service fee of about $1 million. That's like the origination fee. So you're at 49. The capitalized interest at the rate for that paper right now on the promissory note is 3.24% through the state revolving fund. If you were to basically go to the bond market and get municipal money that was eligible, the rate for that money currently is about 4.2, probably about 4 to 4.375, thereabouts. But then you have to pay an underwriting fee on top of that and all your associated costs. This is a 15-year loan. Think about it in terms of your home mortgage. This is a 15-year loan. Most of the long-term debt that we've issued bonds on are 30 years, 20 to 30 years. So this is a fairly short repayment period. And so you put that capitalized interest cost in there, and so you got a total cost of $54.5 million to be amortized at the interest rate of 3.24. The annual debt service that we'll have to, pay annualized on a 12-month basis is basically $4.2 million. And it also has a coverage factor. I'm sorry, the annual debt service is 3.7. The coverage factor is 4.2 over the life of the loan. You know what a coverage factor is? That's insurance, basically, to insure a certain amount of the principal to be repaid to the Florida revolving fund. Pretty good loan if you're lending it. You got insurance. They go to secondary markets. So that's why we get a better rate than what the municipal bond market would turn. We're basically giving insured money. And so they'll go, well, less risk, less interest. 3.24%. Where's the money going to come from? What's our condition right now with the utility? First off, this utility generates currently about $30 million a year. And let's look at an income statement for that utility to see where the money is going to come from. This is FY 21 and 22. Water and sewer charges in FY 21 was 26.9, so 27 million in the current FY, the last FY, it's 22. So you're at $30 million. When you go to the bottom line of that, take out of that 30 million in revenue, how much it costs you to operate that whole business. The operating costs, which is called the beta, earnings before interest, beta, taxes and amortization, you pull out 16 million out of the 30. And then it gives us a net surplus of 11. Out of that 11, basically, we have to pay existing debt service because we don't have these loans. That revenue comes in basically at about $10 million a year. Out of that $30 million, we have a surplus of $10 million. But it's not really a surplus because Jim takes that money and has done a lot of the projects that he's talking about as it relates to things that we had to pay for ourselves. And we'll continue to do that. Here's the proposed pro forma on it, which is what it would look like under repayments with that debt load on it. You have to understand, 15-year note, so if they're proposing a 2024 repayment period starts, so you take it out 15 years from there on a capitalized basis, and it goes up 3% per year. That is in our ordinance. We can increase our rate 3% per year.
Well, it's tied to the CPIU, whatever.
It's tied, right, yeah, we're averaging it at 3. Right now, inflation's running considerably higher than that, as you know. 3 is pretty conservative if you look at national economic trends and the like. But we thought it was conservative. Our expenses also increase as we pay people more money and pay more product for the chemicals that we have to use and the supplies and the material. But revenue should equal expenses, and we use 3% on each side of that. So as you increase going out in these out years, your revenue is increasing. Again, so is your cost, your operating expenses. And ultimately, you have that delta that's in between, that's earnings before interest and amortization. With that, you have an existing loan debt that we already have at $1.2 million, but that comes off the books it's gradual because there's a series of different SRF loans. It comes off the books in total. It begins in 2029 and comes fully off the books in 2035. What SRF wanted us to do is say, can you afford this loan with what you already are borrowing, what you make, what it costs you to run that business? At the bottom of this, you'll see projected SRF loan debt service of $4.2 million. That's assuming we took the whole $48 million, basically. So when you take that $10 million surplus and you take off what your current debt load is, in addition to what your proposed debt load is, we're still netting up $7-8 million to the good. If we were Henry Ford making cars, and we would have to be buying equipment that makes cars, manufacturing equipment. We don't make cars. We make water, and we get rid of water. That's our business, and it's a good business. We have a monopoly. It's a regulated business. It's allowed by the state, and we do it well. But we need a business model and strategic planning for capital cost to put the systems in place that will continue to do that in an environmentally acceptable manner, so we're not in lawsuits, in a reliable manner for our customer base, and in an affordable manner. We think this proposal does that. The only thing we're asking for is really a request to put the application in. And these kinds of things, like I've seen Jim put the strategic plan, and sometimes my own eyes will get tired because I'm dealing with other things. A lot of people haven't paid attention to them, and the public doesn't, in large part. They pay attention to the delivery of service and the cost associated with it. I get it. I think that's what I do too as a consumer and the like. But it's thoughtful, and we can afford it, and it's well within coverage ratios. We do not. This is not general fund expenditures. General fund. It's called an enterprise for a reason. It's actually called, in the GASB world of generally accepted government accounting standards, it's called a proprietary account. So it's reflected on our financial statements, but you'll see it carved out.
But the whole purpose of it, we can cover the loan.
Yeah.
And, also, the loan is the maximum we can cover, that we're hoping maybe to be half of that if everything comes in with grants, and we'll keep applying for those. And also, we're speeding up things that maybe should have been done in the past to get them caught up a little bit, as well as if we don't get the loan, it means nothing.
That's it.
So,
And I'm proud of the work that Jim and his people have done, because they're looking into the future, and they're crunching the numbers that go with it.
So we can get to discussion. The
great.
chair will entertain a motion to approve, then we can get to the discussion.
Okay.
I'll move to.
Approve, okay. We have a motion to approve Resolution 2314 by Mrs. Moore. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kramer. Any discussion?
May I just
Yeah.
make one quick comment?
Yes.
I would also like, I don't want to take a lot of time, but I think it's worth saying that Mr. McCullen and his team have, I love the forward thinking, I love the going after the legislative funds. Did I understand correctly that this interest rate is adjustable? And if it is, I assume that I thought I heard you just say that right now. I didn't think it was.
Yeah, I think it's fixed.
Okay, great. And I assume too, this is just another tool in the toolbox in addition to municipal bonding? Or did you have to make a choice between those two?
It is. Municipal bonding goes longer in duration typically, and I think it's probably one of the most attractive things. It's the state bank that's designed for these kinds of projects. You're always going to do better because there's a little bit of a, I don't know, the state in providing that money will take a little bit more risk with it than the commercial market will.
Ms. Barnaby?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. McClellan and Mr. Perry, for the presentation. I think everyone that has been in Bradenton for more than a New York minute understands that we've had issues in the past with old equipment, old pipes, situations that were not as desirable as many of us would have liked. And I'm happy to see that we're going to address this.
Thank you. Hearing no further discussion, we'll start the vote in Ward 3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
It's approved 4-0. We've got probably some comments that we need to have, and you have a 3 o'clock CRA meeting, is that correct?
That's correct.
So I'm going to recess this meeting till 2 o'clock, and we'll come back at 2 o'clock and do the rest of our unfinished business, council reports, department head reports. We'll be recessed till 2 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you. It was a great presentation by our Pirates general manager at the chamber luncheon, so it's definitely worth recessing for and going to. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump ahead before we go to the others, go to department head reports. I don't know, does anybody want to start first, or Chief, you want to come up? Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just wanted to speak very, very briefly on a couple of the issues that were brought up this morning. Potentially not everything, because what I heard was the threat of civil action and what have you. So I don't know that I really want to specifically speak to that, other than to say, and I wasn't exactly sure what was going to be said, so I came prepared for a lot of stuff this morning. I do want to talk about the young man who was here. That's the first time I had met him, who talked about his child. What I can tell you is we've had numerous encounters with him, some positive, some negative. The most recent two were directly related to that case. We met with him. We took a report from him. We explained to him what his options were. Obviously, we're not in the field of trying to determine genealogy, child custody, what have you, but we did direct him to the appropriate entity as well. We were called back when he was on the opposite side regarding the facility making an assault complaint against him. Nonetheless, we met with him. We again took down some good information and directed him where we think we need to, and if there's something that we can do, we certainly will. But it was a mischaracterization, as were many things said today, of his interaction with us. We have met with him. We have spoken to him. I will not necessarily point out the obvious, other than this case that keeps getting brought up from 2019 was handled in 2019. It was handled in 2020. It was handled in 2021. It was handled again in 2022. There's nothing else to handle related to that. We've been getting some indications that we haven't been responsive to individuals' requests for public records. What I can show you, both from the city side as well as this side, is a list of people who continue to make requests, but don't want to follow the proper procedures and pay the appropriate money. It's a standard, it's a system, we apply it unilaterally to everybody, we don't make exceptions. If there's any information that has been requested, we follow the law, we give it to them, but if money is needed to obtain those records, we wait till we get that. So it's pretty cut and dry there. If somebody has something very specific that they want to bring forward, I asked for this record, you didn't give it to me, I'm confident that I can show that those individuals probably have a history of not paying, and it's really that simple. I think that's pretty much all that was brought up. I stepped out a couple times. I had some other issues going on. But if any council person would like to ask me specific questions, and as usual, if at any time y'all would like to, I'm sorry, y'all, if at any time from Florida would like to have a one-on-one meeting with me and ask me any specific questions about any specific issues, specific cases that I can discuss, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm available to you all 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I do have one question, maybe more for Mr. Rudiso. When threats of lawsuits and things come to us, and we're saying we're not answering some of that, I mean, I would believe that we shouldn't respond in certain things. We give them their First Amendment rights to talk for their 3 minutes, and then that's our policy. Until that changes, we've got to abide by that.
Yeah.
And so, there's times that we should not respond, and it has nothing to do with the race issue. It has to do with the threats are being made. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you have the threat of litigation being thrown out, I think it's a good practice to just not respond on whatever that particular issue is, and we can talk about it internally and figure out if we need to make any type of response down the line. But I think that's a good
standard to follow.
Yes.
All right, and I know that, actually even today, we saw where information was put on Elmo that refuted what the person was saying. It was just wrong. So, we're going to keep bringing up stuff that's wrong. Why do we have to keep beating that drum over and over again? And I want the citizens to hear that we are investigating things. We are doing the things that need to be done. And just because we're not going to play it out in the drama of TV, and we've got to keep the government going. This is a business meeting. We're trying to manage it like that. And, we've heard plenty, and that is over and over again, because they don't get the answer they want. They try to then spin it another way. And we got to start moving forward for the citizens of Bradenton, and while giving everybody their First Amendment right. So, thank you, Chief.
I will continue to tell you that the men and women and the organization itself is an incredible organization. We're ethical. We're all those words that you could attach to it. We wouldn't be an accredited agency. We wouldn't have the reputation we do with the governor's office, with state, with federal. For lack of better words, if somebody thinks they've got, bring it on, and we'll look at that too, and we'll show that what we're doing every day, all the time, is the right thing. Beyond all that, just a couple quick notes. We've been meeting quite a bit with our partners in law enforcement, primarily the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. I'm not prepared to tell you how we're going to try to formalize some relationships, but we recognize that because of some of the upticks in incidents with violent crime, with homelessness, and not only our law enforcement partners, but also the county, we're looking at opportunities to leverage some of the dollars we've been given for staffing, as well as taking some of our current staffing and act as a force multiplier and join with them on potentially a longer-term basis, but certainly a short-term basis to get out into the neighborhoods a little bit more with some visibility greater than what we can do because of our size. And so know that we are looking at that, we are addressing it. I will be coming to you in short order, probably within the next 2 weeks, to let you know exactly what we plan on doing to the best of our abilities. And so stay tuned. We'll have some good news, good partnerships coming out of that. So, okay, thank you.
Questions?
No, I just want to make a comment.
Sure.
As painful as it is for a lot of times the council to listen to the comments that have been made over and over at the same time, you, me, retired Lieutenant Monahan in the back, spent our careers defending those people's right to make those complaints, and we will continue to do that. So I admire you for standing in the face of the allegations. Again.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any other department heads right out of the box? All right.
I sent you all an email regarding the postponement of the text amendment, which addressed various uses in the form-based code. And so we're postponing second reading after discussion, after the benefit of the conversation we had on first reading, and then talking to the city attorney, we thought it was best to accompany that text amendment with another one, which would make some changes to the land use regulations as well. And I think it was, just speaking to what the status is of a process after a special use has been approved. However, there was a zoning in progress that was put in place in September. That is set to expire in March, and we can bring back to you next month or at your next meeting an extension of that zoning in progress. And basically what it does, it doesn't prevent anybody from applying, but essentially we don't process for those particular uses that were addressed under that text amendment. We wouldn't process their petitions until such time as either the zoning in progress has lapsed or you've made some decisions on the uses and how they would be dealt with in the code. My recommendation would be, for example, the Salvation Army has a pending building permit, and while we can't discuss that particular petition here today, if the zoning in progress lapse, it would allow them, as being a use that is not listed, to apply for a special use and go through that same process that we were recommending they go through with the text amendment. So there is that possibility. So I think what the tact will take at this point is maybe to put the extension of the zoning in progress on your next agenda, and then you can make a decision at that time whether or not you want to let it lapse or extend it for a period of time.
Any questions?
Meanwhile, contact me if you'd like to meet, and we can discuss further what's going to be contained in the amendment. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Rudisil?
I do have one item, Mr. Mayor. We had a request come in from the school district to terminate an interlocal agreement that was entered into between the school board and the city back in 2002. Essentially, it's an agreement for joint use of a park at Ballard Elementary, just some property just to the south there.
Important approach would circulate the document that Mr. Russell will be talking about. Sorry, Scott. I didn't mean to
That's okay. So this came in too late to get on for the agenda, so I thought we'd at least introduce it. We don't have to take action on it today. The school board has asked if we can do something in February. So essentially what the school board is saying is, under the new Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Safety Act, they have to secure their campus, and so as part of that, they need to secure this park site, and they're asking to terminate the interlocal agreement with the city. And basically, the interlocal was both the school district and the city had put in some, I think there was some sidewalk infrastructure and maybe a couple benches and tables and stuff like that. There was some shared maintenance, but that was really it. It was kind of joint use of that property, but it was school district property. So.
And I know that they're doing this with the county and all the schools that are in places because of the Marjorie Stoneman Act. So, all right.
Mayor, Council, just in addition to that, and talking with the school board, property management individual, I think Mr. Rudisell spoke with as well. The area itself, I think it originally had some playground equipment and the like. It's become fairly decrepit. I think there's also been a rather, I don't know, somewhat vagrant use by vagrants and folks like that, homeless populations and the like that are in there, that concerns the school board itself. I did have a conversation with one of the counselors, and there was mention about the historical agreement itself, and that there are, I think, people that might walk dogs in the park and the like. So I just wanted to bring it to the attention. We don't have to do anything with it today, but bringing it up today, and thank you, Mr. Rudisell, for doing that. We'd like to get it addressed in February. I think Scott actually reached out to them during the break because I was going to ask for action today. Wasn't sure if it was kind of a time-sensitive thing, but I think we have through February at least for compliance with that state act.
Well, one of the things also is we did not have a park area right across the street in 2002, so we do have the John and Rebecca Neal area over there that does give opportunity, not the playground equipment, but I think that's been fenced off for a while anyway.
Correct.
In some areas, so, yeah. So I think there's opportunity to work, and again, it's more about a protection of the school system than anything, and the kids. So, all right, thank you. All right, any other, Ms. Melton?
Briefly, we are very excited to announce we're live with Granicus agenda software. And if you'll bear with me, I just wanted to announce it in a public meeting and show the public how simple it is to find all agendas. And what makes this different is all backup materials is also included. So if you go to our homepage under City Council Documents and click there, or you can click in a meeting, on the government calendar, it'll take you right to the agenda. You can download. Our agenda for today has disappeared because it thinks the meeting's over. But you could click on the agenda or the agenda packet, which includes all backup documentation, and the citizens do not need to ask us for that now. So more community outreach and transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Melton, please stay up there for a moment if you would indulge me.
Of course.
So for quite a while, you have been criticized and trying to say that you had hidden things by a previous council person, which is just so inaccurate. Everything that we have done and the transition with the minutes of the meeting and all of that, I want to thank you for working through that and making sure that everything is transparent, as well as working 7/24 sometimes to make that happen. And I had seen that. And from my standpoint, I appreciate you taking that and working through it. And I was glad that the citizens spoke at the right time and made sure that, you know, you do that. And bringing this up is very important. So
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other department heads? Anything? All right. Mr. Perry, we're going to go back to number 9, which is unfinished business. I didn't know if you had anything specific on that before we went to council reports. I don't think so.
Don't believe so.
Okay, perfect. All right, council reports. We'll start in Ward 2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to thank Mr. McClellan and his staff. We have had some bumps in the road with Lewis Park, but I appreciate their ability to be flexible, their ability to listen to the citizens, and to try to make sure that we get the very best park that we can have, and I want to thank you for that. I wanted to say I've had some complaints about what I am calling the Peaches Shopping Center. It, back in the day, was the DeSoto Shopping Center. I'm going all the way back to the 60s there. Don't give me that face.
I didn't live there back then.
But there's an absentee landlord there. And we are trying to work with this person to get them to understand that if they want to own property in our city, they need to treat it appropriately. They need to have it cleaned up appropriately. It should not be the residents, the neighbors, picking up trash out of their yard because nobody is emptying the garbage cans that they have on their property. I'm not talking about when the businesses put garbage in the garbage cans. I'm talking about the items out in front. And it appears that if the owner has a property manager working on that, if he's paying them to do it, he is not getting his money's worth. So I again, appreciate the neighbors reaching out. We are going to try to do something about it. I know that code enforcement has worked on reaching this individual. I'm waiting for a report back on that. I also want to take this opportunity to express my deepest sympathies to the family of Walter Golby. Walter Golby was a graduate of Manatee High School in 1956, and he joined the city of Bradenton in 1958 and eventually became our city clerk and treasurer, and was very instrumental in working with the Pirates and getting the Pirates here on behalf of the city. He has passed away, and I know that he has children that grew up here and lived in different parts of the country, but I wanted to say that at the City of Bradenton, we do remember him, we remember his service, and we want to thank them for sharing him with us. And then the last thing I have is the informational meetings on the potential sale of City Hall in Ward 2. They will be on February the 9th at 7 p.m. at Trinity United Methodist Church, and on February the 10th at 4 p.m. in the afternoon at Bradenton Christian School. I will have signs placed there to, because both of those campuses they're a fairly big area, so we will have signs placed to show you where the meetings are and how to get there. And if you have any questions, as always, you can call me at the Ward 2 office.
Thank you. Mr. Kramer?
Thank you, sir. So this weekend, I sort of fell into cop mode. I did it for a little while. I was downtown at the farmer's market, the public market, and Jeannie was at the tent talking about the City Hall project, development project downtown, and I felt like she needed some backup. So I sort of stood there just as backup for her, and I let her, she does a great job, so she's communications director, I let her talk to people, and then if they had more questions or they seemed like they weren't going to go away, I just sort of gave my card, said, hey, if you have any other questions, give me a call. Then went back to my office, and I had some voicemails I wanted to do some follow-up on, so I just started writing the notes down, and the next thing you know, I had a whole pad of notes of people to talk to. So I said, Saturday afternoon, let me just go see these people. So I got to drive around my ward a little bit and stop in to see people, and just like we used to do as cops, we take the first call we got and go handle it, and then the next call and go handle it, and the people seem to appreciate that. So I won't say I'm going to do it every weekend, but don't be surprised if I show up in a neighborhood near you. Looking forward to the meetings. I know they've been announced. They've all been publicly announced. I think the last ones are going out for Ward 3 today. So I'm looking forward to hearing what the public has to say.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Moore?
I similarly just want to, people viewing online, it will be over by then, but to anyone here, that tonight we're having the first of Ward 4s, and it'll be at 5:30 at Central Cafe. I'm looking forward also to hearing what people have to say about it. People have already reached out to me, and with some really detailed, background maybe in some industry that's relevant. So I'm appreciating the engagement from the citizens, especially when they can offer some insight into construction or development or planning. And I just want to encourage them to attend as many of the meetings and keep providing that input, because I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Coachman?
Thank you. Last but not least, I'm going to piggyback on some of the things that have already been said, so I won't labor on them. But speaking of parks, did I remind you of something? Speaking of, yeah, I won't be last this time. Speaking of parks, I am quite delayed in thanking the Bradenton Police Department and our Public Works Department, because there are 2 parks in Ward 5 that had not only needs an uplift, but it was also being taken over by residents. And it's been well over months, couple of months, 3 months, that I know consistently that those parks are clean and they're free of anyone that might be a bit scary to the kids and their families. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I had failed to say thank you for that. I drive by them every day, and they're looking great. Also piggybacking on the meetings that we're going to be holding to talk with the public. And I've said it before, I really enjoy it, whether it's anti what we're doing or for. It's just so important to know what the public is thinking, and it weighs on us. We take all of that into consideration. My next community meeting will be February 16th, 5:30 at the 13th Ave Dream Center. I've had one meeting on the west side, but if there's possibility of scheduling another one before the end of the month, we'll take a look at that. But the calendar is really filling up. Couple of things that I have had phone calls about other than selling City Hall has been some eyesore properties. And it was great to hear, and I always knew we were working towards something. We have a process, but now we need to tweak it and enhance it so that we can be more effective. So I'm sure that all the people that have been calling me are happy. Some have probably already seen a drastic change. So just looking forward to the process helping clean up a pretty derailed area. So, and other than that, happy Valentine's Day if I don't see you guys before then.
Ms. Moore?
Oh, I also meant to give a thank you to Mr. McCullen because please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the observation tower is now in operation, and I know, in the very least, I have a 14-year-old that's super excited about it, so thank you.
Thank you. Just piggyback off that, we were out there yesterday, and what I'm very impressed with it, being able to walk it the way it is you basically have views from everywhere. And whether you're on the ramps going up, and obviously the ADA part of it, to give people that wouldn't have that opportunity to have that view easily is going to be very exciting for our city as we transition to Lewis Park, on the west side, to have that opportunity as well when it gets open, and moving forward with all the rest of the parks that we have for the future. So that's a great thing. One of the things, kind of talking about our meetings that we're having and we're going to continue to have through this month for the public engagement. I mean, obviously, we have our morning meetings, and we've gone back and forth over the years. We have the same number or less numbers when we had night meetings, because I was a driver in that many years ago to do one meeting there. And so we went back to the morning meetings for both of them. And by doing this public engagement, we're doing them at night and in the afternoon. So you're giving people, if they want to come here and talk, they have that opportunity. If they want to go to one of the meetings and give their input, we are having them all over the board and all over the place in the city. So that's great. One of the things I did hear walking downtown from one of our businesses, that there is some propaganda going around out there that when their business is going to be closed if this happens, because of the street closures and all that. Well, that's one of the things that Mr. Perry and I have talked about. Others have said at times, it is going to be, no matter what happens if we move forward, we are not going to be a detriment to the businesses. It may even enhance that business, because there'll be more people shopping or doing things at that business. So the citizens need to know that we are addressing that very aggressively, and this is a huge piece of property, so there is opportunity to stage on the property at times, especially with the way I would imagine that different things would be built. So that's something that I don't want, when I had a business owner ask me about it, I said, don't be afraid, and also, obviously, we know Main Street, you have to keep open because you have the retirement home on it, obviously, it's our staple. So we're really going to work on that. Yesterday, we had a great meeting at the Council of Governments, and one of the things that came out of that, obviously, the presentations of the big six in the county, which Mr. Perry and I are on the way back. I purposely went on one of those big six roads to come back from our meeting with the chamber today, because even though it doesn't directly every day affect the city, it will directly affect the city every day because of the transportation. If those roads are moving better, our city transportation moves better. So that was a great presentation, as well as giving the information to a different venue of people at that, and that was on TV. So great job on that to Mr. Perry and Dr. St. Luce for that presentation. Then last night, some of us were able to go over to the 100-year celebration of the Bradenton Herald. Now, at times, we love the Bradenton Herald, at times we don't, but that's just part of the being in the politics and other things. But one of the things that they've done has been consistent. And, even though the changing way the newspaper is out there today, it's what it is, more digital and that, but we're still lucky to have something that tries to print the news, not create the news. And I think the Bradenton Herald does that very well. So we were proud to be over at Oscura in our new kind of town and the way that things are going. The old city that now is the new city, and kind of really trying to revitalize that. So that was great. And then obviously what we're going to have Saturday again for the 8th annual regatta, close to hopefully 100,000 people will be downtown as you go through it. Been at every one of them and enjoyed it. My 12-year-old grandson now, who's been at every one of them and started 8 years ago when he was 4, still loves it, and that's what we're going to keep doing to grow this city, is many events. And our urban core development is so important to the future for all of us, but especially that generation that's coming up if we want to keep them here. So as you say, you got a regatta. So enjoy that Saturday. Be prepared. The DeSoto Bridge will be closed, Green Bridge will be closed, and be patient on the DeSoto Bridge if you're trying to move around, because it's one of those things. Or avoid the area if you don't want to be there. So that's a fun thing. So this will get out. And I think that's it. I just look forward to all the public meetings, and I appreciate the engagement that everyone has up here.
Just a reminder to our citizens not to block the box.
Oh,
when
block
they get
the box, yeah.
When they get frustrated. I'm not saying you're a square, sir.
Yeah, I said, but block the box. There's something that's going on. And again, it's with the lights on 6th Avenue more than anything that the box gets blocked. We're going to, again, work with the DOT to try to get some more, instead of putting police officers out there writing tickets, which there's some areas they could probably write them every day, and I'll bet you the same people would get them every day. But we're trying to come up with some plans to put some, don't do it just because sometimes we all have, oh no, I'm in it.
I think you've got
And
room.
you get right in. So just be patient, and that actually will help the traffic flow on the other direction, which will hopefully help the traffic flow in the direction you're going. So just really, really work on that. And I just want to thank Mr. Perry, because as our new council has come in, everyone is meeting with him, going over the whole agenda, and it's very good to see that we have an engaged council that wants to get the information and hopefully have it correct or question it, and not, again, try to propagandize it. So thank you for doing that. So
taking time to do it.
yeah, because that's important. And I'm here more during the day than a lot, just because of the position it is. So I get a lot of it all the time, and we work together with the agenda to really try to make it, as well as all the staff that's in the room, to continue to put those efforts out there to educate the citizens on the correct information and not propagandize it. And that's what my whole life has been, is do the right thing for the right reason when nobody's looking. And unfortunately, that's not what some do. So we've got to continue to do that. I talked to a class yesterday over at Ballard Elementary of pre-kindergartners, 4 and 5 years old. So I realized that the one young man right away might have been the fun individual in the class, because all the kids were telling me, well, that's him. I won't use his name. So I kind of played on that, and we had a little game that we went through, and we played 1, 2, 3, do the right thing, number one, for the right reason, and especially when nobody's looking. So before I left, they were saying that, and I said, okay, I'm going to leave. What are we going to do? And they, 4 and 5 years old, just to give them that fun, and read them a book and that. But no, those are the fun things in this job, and I mean, it was really, really interesting. I was glad Mrs. Coles had asked me to come and do that, but there was about 20 4 and 5 year olds in there just learning what they could and doing it. So gives you the smiles and the warm, heartfelt things when you can do things like that. So I really appreciate it. And anything else for the good? You guys will have a little bit of a break before your CRA meeting. So thank you very much. We'll be adjourned.